Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for Increasing Your Net Worth program. A very warm welcome from KingsWord London. A very warm welcome to everybody in the Graceland this afternoon, and a very warm welcome to everybody joining us online today. A couple of start. Please tell us where you're joining us from, where you're watching from. And also a comment about what your expectations are for today's meeting. For those in the Graceland this afternoon, there is sort of a pledge or a commitment who you've connected with today. So between 1 and 3 people, what they do, so what their day job is or what business line they're involved in. And then we're asking you to make a commitment. What are you going to do as a result of being a part of today's session? What are you going to do more? What are you going to do better? What are you going to do less? And what you're going to do differently? Now, for those online, so you don't feel left out, you're welcome to also sort of take a piece of paper and just write all of that down. So what you're going to do more of, I'm going to be facilitating the session today, but I'm going to invite the senior pastor of KingsWord International Church London to do a short intro welcome address about today's session. As I said earlier, this is Increasing Your Net Worth program, and we're delighted this afternoon to be joined. I wanted to say Dr. Sola Osinoiki, so there's probably a PhD there in the spirit somewhere that is sort of manifesting at the moment. But yes, let me welcome Pastor Emi Akinlaja to set us off. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Warm welcome once again to everyone in the Graceland and to the several individuals that are joining us online. You are welcome once again to Increasing Your Net Worth. All right? And I just want to share a few things with you about, welcome and introduction to this meeting. What is on my heart, where Increasing Your Net Worth is concerned, where the empowerment sessions are concerned. This is not our first empowerment session, and this is not the first empowerment session that Pastor Sola Osinoiki has been a part of. I remember we had this empowerment session that ran for about 8 to 10 weeks in 2018, a series of Sunday services where we had different individuals coming to talk to the church about different aspects of their lives, where they can be empowered, because, the Bible says in Ephesians 1:3 that we've been blessed with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places. And as much as we have all of those blessings in the heavenly places, we can make those heavenly realities beyond the things that we have received. And so that's what the empowerment sessions are about. We've done several of them, and we're going to continue to do them, because we spent a lot of time in the place of prayer. We've spent a lot of time meditating on God's word. And sometimes what we need to be able to lay hold on manifestation of what God has promised, of what God wants to do in our lives, is wisdom. It's direction. It's instruction. Hallelujah. That's the step that people are missing today. It's the connection that people need to make to get what God has promised to become a reality in their lives. And so I want to share this with you. It's a scripture that has been on my mind and my heart for the last couple of years, about 2 years now. This whole concept that God has engaged or brought into my heart has been in my life, and this scripture has been on my mind for maybe the last 6 months. It's Psalm 78 verse 40 and 41. Psalm 78 verse 40 and 41. It says, how often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Yes, again and again they tempted. How they grieved him with their grumblings. Again and again they limited God, preventing him from blessing them. Continually they turned back from him and provoked the Holy One of Israel. The thing that stands out is in Psalm 78 verse 41, and I wanted to take note of that scripture. It says they limited the Holy One of Israel. They limited God. God stopped him. God has but we can limit God in our thoughts. We can limit God in our words. We can limit God in our action because they limited him. The opportunities were there, but he couldn't give it. God couldn't give it to them because they limited him. The Bible tells us that nothing is too difficult for God. Nothing is too difficult for God. For Israel to break the limits that you have put on God. This meeting is to challenge you to break the limits on your mind. Ephesians 3:20 says God is able to do exceeding abundantly far that is at work in you. So God can do more than you ask or imagine. But how far can you imagine? What can you imagine? And these meetings, these empowerment sessions are to open up your mind, to open your imagination, to see that it is possible, it can be done. You know, as a young person, I think I was 19 or 20, I went to a meeting like this. It was an empowerment meeting like this. I remember the conference was tagged Money Comet. I think it was in 1999 or 2000. As a young lad in university, I went to this meeting where ministers were talking about the possibilities in God. The possibilities in God, the possibilities financially, the possibilities around net worth and investments and things like that. And I thought to myself, God can. Not because of what my parents had accomplished or what I felt that I could get from them. Not because I felt like they would just write me a check or make a transfer into my bank account. But I believed that God could do this in my life. So at the time I was 30. A millionaire by 30. In the natural, there was nothing that could make me a millionaire by 30. But having gone to a meeting like this, I decided I was going to become a millionaire by 30. And you know what happened? You know, I became so conscious. My mind was so open to becoming a millionaire. It was happening to me because I had this on my heart and my mind. I had this on my heart and my mind. And by the time I was 26 or 27, I had $1 million in assets. I had hit the million. Opportunities opened up. Opportunities for investment, financial increase, money that I wasn't expecting, businesses that made me became a millionaire before I was 30. Now, obviously, I relocated to the United Kingdom and my millions became thousands. And so, you know, I was a millionaire in Naira in those days, but then I had to readjust myself to the fact that now we're talking about pounds and we have to readjust ourselves to think about millionaire in pounds. To think about being a millionaire in pounds. I was just refreshed about a story, you know, earlier today, this young man, university student in Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria, who had this brilliant business idea, and his pastor said, okay, I'm going to hook you up to a pastor in KingsWord. And they hooked up. And before you know it, there was an investment in that business, and within the first 6 months, $1.5 million from an investment of maybe about 40,000. And that's how they walked into millionaire status in dollars. Dr. K, the founding pastor of KingsWord Everywhere, was sharing about how somebody joined the church only 2.5 years ago. At the time that he joined church, his monthly income was $1,500. And as he stayed in church and was hearing the messages and receiving from God, he was inspired to start some businesses that had failed in the past. He said he started those businesses and he began to earn 6 figures. When your yearly income becomes your daily income, he was inspired to quit the job. He is still doing even more than the 6 figures today. These are people who did not put a limit on God. These are people who did not put God in a box, right? That they were able to break into a space where their net worth increased significantly. I remember, you know, one of our estate agent brought someone to this property. I shared it before in KingsWord London. How that the individual was helping a church check the facility so they could rent it. And he said to them, he said, look, I don't want you to rent a property. I want to buy you a place. Find a place that I can pay for that the church will own outrightly. He said, I've made a commitment to God that I'm going to buy 2 buildings for churches this year. So he said, go and find a place that you can buy. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, for someone to be in a disposition. Last time Pastor Sola was here, I think that was autumn last year, he shared how that somebody in their church just told Pastor that I have wired 1 million euros to the church. Before you say no, I've already wired the money. You know, these are people that have been put in a position where they can be a blessing in the advancement of the kingdom of God because they themselves have received. Be a millionaire by 30, I became a millionaire by 26, 27. And then I heard the story of somebody who was in the United Kingdom who said he too set a target to become a millionaire by 30. And he hit the target of becoming a millionaire in pounds. Thank you. When he hit 30. And I was not thinking to myself, if I had grown up in the UK and I'd set the same way I set my heart to become a millionaire by 30 in Nigeria, if I set my heart to become a millionaire by 30 in the United Kingdom, I could have hit millionaire by 30, because this is another regular guy who did not become a millionaire as a result of inheritance or a transfer of wealth, but a result of him being diligent in the principles of financial increase. That he got to this place where he became a millionaire, that it can happen. And that also influenced my mind for today. That you know what? We can have people who are thinking beyond what is needed to just take care of the needs of their family. But they can have such a great impact in their world that their net worth increases. Their net worth increases. But the Bible says in that verse that I shared at the beginning, Psalm 78, verse 41. It says they tempted him and they limited the Holy One of Israel. And so my challenge to you before Pastor Sola comes up is, don't limit God. As Pastor Sola speaks, God will begin to reveal certain things to you. Don't put brakes on God. You might not be able to see it today. You might not know how that thing will happen today. But please do not put any limits on God. Allow your mind to expand. Dream big dreams. Open up your heart. Today is the beginning of the future. You begin that step to become, to increase your net worth by taking a step today. And for those of us who are here and connecting online, you have already started this journey. Because this is how it starts. Like I said, I was a teenager, I was 20, in a meeting like this where they were talking about the possibilities in wealth. And I decided I was going to be a millionaire. The money wasn't there. My first investment must have been like 500 naira or something like that. Well, you start somewhere. Don't put a limit on God. Expand your mind. Enlarge your imagination. Pastor Sola will tell us more about increasing our net worth. Let God speak to you about your current situation, about how to move forward, about how to increase your net worth. I see high net worth individuals being raised in this place. I see high net worth individuals being raised in KingsWord London. Maybe you are joining online. Hallelujah. Your journey begins today, but God is going to bring you to a place where, people will recognize you as somebody who is a high net worth individual. Hallelujah. And it begins with a step. It begins today. Are you one of those people who God is about to change their story? Are you one of those people who begin to, I see somebody lifting their hands. Hallelujah. Somebody, or at least one person is here, glory to God, who's going to be one of those people who will be able to look back and say to people maybe in a year's time or in 2 years or in 5 years' time that this is where I'm coming from. And their story will be an inspiration as Pastor Shola's story continues to inspire us today. Pastor Sola is not a stranger to KingsWord Ministries International as a whole, whether it's in North America, in Europe, in Africa. In fact, Pastor Sola was still speaking at KingsWord International Church in Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria, just this last Sunday. That is how much he is a part of the family. He is also a trustee of KingsWord International Church London. So, formally speaking, I have to meet with the trustees at least twice a year to give them a report of how things are going in church, and they would drill us with questions. And Pastor Shola is very good at that. Comes to taking a closer look at what's happening in your life and helping you to transition and to make progress. He's very gifted in that area. He's also the director and the set man over the Josh Leadership Academy, and I'm sure we're going to experience that impact that JLA is having all over the world. And also somebody who is very well accomplished in the market. He's popularly known as an apostle to the marketplace because of his impact and influence in the marketplace. I want us to glean from that. I want us to learn from that. I don't want to tell you a story because I know, there's no way he's going to talk to us today and not share his story. But I want you to enlarge your mind. Don't put a limit on God. If you are watching and with great expectation, I want you to put your hands together. Put your hands together in the Graceland and put your hands together online and welcome with me Pastor Sola. Yes, please, sir. As he comes to speak to us today. Hallelujah.
We're in hybrid mode, right? So some people are in the room and some people are online. So you got to stay engaged with us. and some of you are going to watch this afterwards, right? So I'm going to try and mentally shift so that we maximize those who are in the room, maximize those who are online, and maximize those who will watch it later. So like experiential that you can enjoy it either way you watch it. So today we have a lot to cover. A lot of it is going to be, like Pastor Abby said, me telling you, we haven't taken the time to think about it as an individual. So there's going to be a lot of individual work also, and maybe sharing notes with somebody sitting next to you, probably. We'll see how we go. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. Are you ready? Yeah, okay. So I don't know how it's going to work. Are my slides going to show up on here? Or where are my slides going to be? Can we technology, guys? Okay. One moment. Okay. So while we're waiting, so this is it. Now we're live. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll just ask you whether my slide. Okay. They're going to help me. All right. So can we go to the first slide? Because at least I can start with that. So if we click to the first slide. Thank you. All right. So even though today is going to be more practical and it's going to be practical principles, I wanted to root it in Scripture. And so we're going to start with respect the Lord your God. But you shall remember with profound respect the Lord your God. Why? For it is He who is giving you power to make wealth, that He may confirm His covenant which He swore. It is God Himself who gives us the power to make wealth. The concept of net worth comes from wealth. And the Bible tells us in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, way back in the beginning of Scripture, that He's reminding us that you get wealth because it comes from God. Because it was a promise from God. It is God that gives you the ability into the detail that become numbers and figures and values. Ultimately, the bottom line is that God. That's the bottom line, right? Because it can be very easy for you to get away from this talk that is all about practical, but the Spirit leading you in what to do, God teaching you how to do it is all as important. God, you're the one that gives you the power to make wealth, and I have nothing to do. That's one of my slides that I share a lot, where I start by talking about your network plus your ability to create value gives you your net worth. So your network, the people you know in your network, the people you connect with, the people that you are on a regular contact with, the people in your circle, your net worth in your community. So your ability to create value is what turns your talent into money or wealth. But no matter how talented you are, unless you're connected, about the Hollywood factor, you now have the Hollywood network that can increase your net worth. So have that at the back of your mind as a starting point. Next slide, please. Now, like I said, we're going to go really basic, and then we'll build out. So at the basic level, your net worth is equal to your assets. Sorry, that's wrong, actually. It's your assets minus your liabilities. Sorry, I don't know why that's technical error, which is on my side. So it's your assets. Yeah, I did. Okay, so let's stick with this slide. So your net worth, when we talk about your net worth, because people think that your net worth is how much money you make. No, let's assume you have an asset worth 300,000. Let's say a property. You own a 3-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, it's worth 300,000. But you still have a mortgage of 250,000 on that property. Your net worth, even though you're living in a 300,000 property, your net worth is actually only 50,000. Right? But some people will say that my net worth for that year is 50,000. So you see, and that's why people get it wrong with. I remember I was teaching in Malawi in a village, and we did a microfinance project, and they went out, they sold let's say they had £100 worth of property, they sold it for 110. When they came back, they wanted to spend the whole 110 as if that was I said, no, that's not your profit. Your profit is only 10. The 100 is still your capital that you need to reinvest to make more money. So this is a very good image that when you start looking at yourself, what is your net worth? It is not how much your house is worth. It's not how much your salary is worth. It's actually your assets minus. Good. Next slide. We're going to get very practical. So, okay, can you go back one slide for a second? So what I was going to do the math by yourself and put a number on what you think your net worth is. Based on your assets and your liabilities, put a number on it. Don't worry, you don't have to reveal it to anybody. Unless you want to. But nah, I'm just get a view because then you can't really know. These are one of those things that are your assets, right? Okay, so next slide. And I might even get excited and jump up on stage here. So there are three types of, it's not limited to, but in my mind, there are three types of ways you can create assets. Number one, where we spend a lot of time and a lot of focus because of our age, and I look at this room, most of us, and probably online, we talk more about earned income. Income that we earn almost daily, weekly, monthly. Whether that's through a business, or through a day job, or through some kind of scholarship if you're a student, or some kind of government fund, right? I've not put that up there because when you're talking about net worth, you need to have some real income, not just government support, right? So you have your business or employment. Those are earned income. And actually, until you do something, you don't get any money from it. So it's earned income based on activity that you do on a day-by-day categories. Number one, passive income. Income that you're doing nothing and the money is just coming to you. Or you've done something and you continue to earn. And then the other bit is investment. I will talk about those two categories in a second. So let's look at passive income. And I just put some examples, but there are many, many more. And even in your own personal life, you might have some examples yourself. But let's start with very easy one, social media. Now, if you are on social media, you might know that you can earn from YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. There's a great YouTube clip by a young lady, Nigerian girl, who said she earned over 7 years, $1 million from YouTube. 1 million. My daughter, Love, is also a YouTuber and an influencer. She doesn't earn up to $1 million, but she earns some money through it. So, whatever you can earn by creating content could be a business, but if you've created the content already, could become passive income. The fact that people go to your website and you allow them to put videos on there, ads up there, you can earn income from it. So it's passive income, because once you've created it, you can continue to create income from it more and more. So one could be social media. Two, if you've invested in stocks, then you could get dividends on a quarterly basis or an annual basis. But you could also produce books, anything online. You could create a community where people pay to come into your community to listen to you, to talk. There's a guy called Rob Moore. He has a community online. People pay him to just talk. Imagine if you're paid $1 for everybody who listens to you. And you don't know how many people they're going to be. But as long as they listen, they pay $1. Right? So that's passive income. Because you're going to talk once, and then you just replay it. Replay. Then, definitely nobody in this room, at least I don't think, is earning a pension yet. But some people get an early pension, right? At 40, 45, you can get your pension, can be paid already in advance for you. So that could also be passive income. It's income you've worked for in the past that is now producing for you now. But you could also have life insurance. I remember 20 years ago, my father-in-law called my wife and I and said, I did this life insurance and it's now paid out, and he shared it all with the family. All his kids all got something. I think we got like 250 pounds. And, so life insurance also doesn't have to wait until you die before you benefit from it. There's some life insurance that you can go into that would actually pay on when you are alive, when you meet certain milestones. And then finally, you can have inheritance. My son still draws a tiny inheritance from his great-grandfather's estate on an annual basis. And my wife does too. So inheritance also could be a way to get passive income. But actually, you can think about it another way. What are you doing now to ensure that when you go, your kids can earn passive income from inheritance? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's so easy to look one way, you can look the other way. What are you doing now that would mean that in the future, your kids can earn passive income from what you've done? And when you look at and you study millionaire status in America, you realize that wealth that's handed down, for example, when you finish a job and you can go and live in a flat that your parents left for you, means that you don't have that income and you don't have that expenditure that most people would have had. And so think about what can you leave behind, because actually we know from scripture that a man's wealth is not really about what he eats now or what his children eat, but the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, right? So your net worth also is calculated on the basis of how much you can actually leave for your children's children. Now, it gets more interesting because then we move into investments, right? So there are many different things that you can invest in. The one that we know the most of, particularly because we're in the UK, is property. I live in Germany right now, and property is not the most important investment that people have in Germany. Because in Germany, it's more a rental market rather than an owner market. I'm not saying people don't own, but I say more people would rent than own. That's a different mindset. So depending on the economy you find yourself in, property could be at the top or at the bottom. So property is another way where you can increase wealth. But I do think that, and I'm going to say something that I'm going to generalize. And I know there are people listening to me from different parts of the world. I don't know how people we have online right now, but I'm going to say something that I generalize, right? Because some people think, once you have property, you're made. Well, depends on where your property is, depends on the property value, and depends on whether it's a real asset or still a liability, right? So a property can actually be an asset, or it can also be a liability. So the question is, where are you at that point in time in your life of investing in property? And some people have multiple properties. So property could be and is one of the ways to become a millionaire, but it's not the only way, right? So property is there, stocks, right? And today is not a day where I'm going to unpack all these things. It's more to put them out there as a notice board for you to pick up. So you can have simple things like penny stocks, which have made people millionaires. You could have, well, for me, let me tell you what I do, and I'll talk about it later. I do a lot of investing in dividend-paying stocks. Because you can buy any stock, but I believe that if I'm buying a stock, it needs to pay me dividends. And so therefore, I would invest more of my money in dividend-paying stocks than gambling stocks. Now, the reality is that in the history of the stock market, gambling on stocks that are not dividend-paying is probably the most profitable way of making money on the stock market, right? Because if you invest in a company that's not even making money right now, but is recognized, let's take Tesla. Tesla is not hitting a profit properly yet, but if you invested in Tesla before January 2020, and today you probably are a thousandaire, right? Probably, all right? Apple, an example. So Apple is an interesting one where Apple is a dividend-paying stock, a very healthy dividend-paying stock, but also it's become a growth stock. So a lot of people that make money on the stock exchange make money from investing in growth stocks because they're willing to take the risk, and it goes up and down. But dividend stocks is kind of like steady income. You know it's going to come. You know you're not going to lose money. I will mention one. I'm not marketing, but I'll mention one. So GlaxoSmithKline for me has always been a very, very powerful dividend stock. Let me tell you why. There's an article, I can't find it now, but it's where a lady invested $1,000, £1,000 in GlaxoSmithKline 20 years ago. 20 years later, without taking any of that money out, she earned $1.8 million pounds from £1,000 investment, because she just reinvested, and £1,000 became $1.8. There's a story about Bill Gates talking to his cleaner and said to her, you should buy this Microsoft stock because it's going to do very well. And today she's a multi-millionaire. And in fact, none of the original investors in Microsoft are anything but multi-millionaires. So sometimes early warning is a good way to get into stocks as a way of investment. Crypto, I'm not a crypto expert. There's somebody better than me in this room that's doing crypto mining, etc. But you can actually do something as simple as just buying crypto on PayPal. You don't even have to, like that one I will advertise, because the risk is on PayPal. Now, I know people say it's better for you to have your own and etc. But we know stories of people that have lost laptops and they're still digging, they haven't found the keys to that laptop. But what I'm saying is that crypto is a new way of working. I probably could say NFTs and many other things, but you need to study that very well to know what kind of investment you're making and whether it's for now or for the future. Inventory. So if you own your own business, the fact that you have stocks piled up, or if you've produced a book and it's an inventory, it's also an asset. You need to sell it to make money, but it's an asset. And then finally, I wanted to put this here because I'm talking mainly to Nigerians. Ajo, if you go into Ajo and you get 5 of you together and you put 5K down, it's some form of investment, and also becomes a liability actually. So I've got it on both screens. Next one. So I'm just kind of building this up. Is this helping? Yeah? Okay. Next slide, please. So let's talk about liabilities. Because people want to talk about assets, but they don't want to talk about liabilities. So I start with, particularly if you're in the UK, student loan. Yeah, it's a liability that's going to be there until you pay it off. And so no matter how much money you make, if you still own a student loan, you've got to deduct that from your net worth. Yeah? Your mortgage. So as long as you have a mortgage, your assets have to be minus your mortgage. So if you have a house that's worth $300,000 and you have a mortgage that's $300,000, your actually net worth is zero. You own nada. Right? Now, the reality is that a lot of people are willing to wait it out. So they would do interest-only mortgages, capital repay mortgages. There are many different mortgages you can do. Me, I'll talk for myself. I will not do interest-only mortgages, right? Because my father was an accountant, so it was like, let's be seen reducing balances so that when we finish after 25 years, we know where we stand, right? So even a car loan. If you have a car that's worth $35,000 and you went out and you took a loan to buy it, $28,000, your net worth of that car, when you sell it, to you is your liability minus the actual value of the asset. Now, a lot of people would say, be careful when you buy a car because it's depreciated assets. But actually, a car could also be an appreciated asset, depending on which car you buy, right? Some people have, I can't remember, there's some cars, I don't want to mention the names and get it wrong, but there's some cars you can buy. There's a friend of mine who I worked with, he basically buys cars, he does research and makes sure the cars he buys are cars that are going to increase in value. He lives in Dubai. He has 5 of them, and I think at the moment they are 500% more valuable than when he bought them. So he actually does the research and says, okay, they make maybe 50 of these cars around the world, find a rare one, buy it, you don't even have to drive it, just keep it, then it becomes a appreciating asset. The same thing with art or any of those other things, right? But the thing is that if you buy a car and you have a car loan on it, you've got to minus that from your net worth. Overdraft. And I put that there because people don't really think about it too much. They think, oh, it's just my overdraft and I use my overdraft every month. Well, then the reality is that, I'm not talking about income and expenditure today, but if I was, I would say you're living beyond your means if you're on an overdraft. So if you're using an overdraft, your net worth is going to be minus your overdraft. right? Unless you're deliberately, intentionally having an overdraft, right? Because we could talk about using credit to boost your net worth, but that's not what we're talking about today. But, sorry, there's a spelling mistake there. The next line should say wages owed. So if you are a business owner and you have started the new month, the moment you start that new month, you're already owing the wages of your staff. Once day one starts, it doesn't matter how long they work, you now owe them. So when you're looking at your net worth, you have to look at it minus how much wages you owe, right? Bank loans, money owed to suppliers, personal loans or ajo, and then finally, the most important thing, particularly if you are self-employed, taxes. What is the fastest thing that cripples American athletes in America? The multimillionaires. Tax. When the government comes looking for you, they were going to collect. And so when you're thinking about your net worth, think about how am I doing with my taxes? And if required, hire an accountant to help you understand your accounts better. All right, next slide. So like I said before, your assets minus your liabilities is what gives you your net worth. And there are three types of net worth in my view. One, you could have a negative net worth. You could have a zero net worth. That means all your assets are consumed by your liabilities. Or you could have a positive net worth. Next slide. So, let's break down just a little bit, just so that we know the domain we're talking about, right? So I'm sure there are more, but I'm looking at here three types of positive net worth. Number one, an investor with less than $1 million, but more than 100,000 is considered to be a sub-high net worth individual, American definition. The upper end is about $5 million, at which point the client is then referred to as a very high-end net worth individual, or more than wealth is classified as a person as an ultra-high net worth individual. But sub is between $1 million and $100,000. So if you did the experiment earlier today, where I said, subtract your assets, subtract your liabilities from your assets, and you came with a number of, let's say, $100,000, then welcome. You are a sub-high net worth individual. Simple, right? Next is the actual term called high net worth individual, which refers to somebody who has at least liquid financial assets, right? So the difference between, so I can have a property that's worth $1 million, but if I can't sell it quickly, if it's not a liquid asset, then I'm not actually, my net worth is not $1 million, right? Because until I sell it, pay the lawyer's fees, pay whatever fees, even if I own the house outright, I'm not actually considered a millionaire because I cannot liquefy that asset very quickly. But if you have $1 million in stock, you can liquefy it very quickly, but also depends on the day of the market, who you're trading with, how you hold those stocks, whether they're LTI, long-term incentives in the workplace, or short-term incentives. Depending on how they're held, it could be that they're liquid assets or not, right? And then finally, the ultra very high net worth, $5 million, up to $30 million. Now, I did a quick research this morning, which I wanted to share with you. It's UK based. One second. Okay. It's UK based, and I was looking at it this morning. Sorry. Yeah. To be in the top 10 percentile of the UK, you need to have wealth or net worth of $176,000. Pounds, sorry. 176,000. That's it. You'll be in the top 10% in the UK. If you want to be in the top 5%, you need to have a net worth or asset value of 270,000. To be in the 2%, you have to have a net worth of 460,000, which is more than 28% of the total population. To be in the top 1%, all you need is 688,000 to be in the top 1% in this country. Now, then the question is, so where are all these multimillionaires? They make up 0.1% of the population. 0.1. So when you're talking about high net worth individuals, they are 0.1% of the UK economy. Now, there's a Nollywood movie, where the woman said, I want to invite the 1% of the 1% of Lagos. You understand? Like, there is the 1% though, but I want to actually invite the 1% of the 1%. So yeah, the richest people in the UK, multi-millionaires, only make up 0.1%. It's crazy, right? So when you say that wealth is in the hands of a very few, yeah? And when you look globally, 1% of the world's income is in the hand of 1% of the population. 1%. Next slide. So, practically, how do you increase your net worth? And we're going to go a little bit practical, and I'm going to break it down a little bit more. And somebody should keep an eye on the time for me, because I can talk a lot. So it starts, number one, with you growing. You growing yourself, growing your capacity, growing your ability, growing who you are. Even if it means you have to change jobs. I'm going to tell you my story very quickly later. You just have to grow. If you stay in one place, you can't increase your net worth. Right? Now, some will say, but you can be a doctor and increase your net worth. Yes, you can, but it's going to take you a long time. So I have a doctor friend who moved to Dubai recently. Her net worth has gone through the roof because now she's not paying 40% tax. So just relocating means the same amount of money that you were earning in the UK, move to Dubai, you're not paying 40% tax. There's nothing illegal about that. It's all legal, all kosher. Right? So I could be a medical doctor and insist I want to stay in the UK and work in the UK. But actually, by just taking a relocation for the same salary, I now can keep 40% of what I had. So wisdom is required. So I'm just saying that you need to grow yourself. Increase your value output. Right? Increase your value output. Whatever that is. Whether you're working with your hands, whether you're a photographer, whatever you're doing, just increase your value output. And we have stories from Nigeria of people like Davido, right? All he did was increase his value output. Now he can decide that he wants to give 5 million, he wants to raise 100 million. And people are just donating to him. Why? Because he has value. They know that even if they give that money to him, nobody knew when they were giving him that money what he was going to use the money for. But he knew, right? Because he had value. And value doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how much money you have. Inventing Anna. Have you watched it? Anybody watched Inventing Anna? Yeah? She had nothing. She had zero. Nothing. Zero. But she almost bought a building worth $10 million. Why? Because she presented value. Even though it was fake value, but she was convincing enough to demonstrate that she added value, and they fell for it. Right? So think about it then the other way around, because even to today, Anna would say, the lady who played Anna would say, she didn't do anything wrong. She just told them that I had a $6 million portfolio somewhere, and they believed her. So think about it, if you actually did have a $6 million portfolio, she didn't have it, but she did a lot. Right? So number 3 is your network, right? Who you're spending time with has a way of influencing what you think, what you say. You know? If you're always, now, what I'm going to say now is in the context of the grace of God, right? And in the context of we are talking about net worth, right? Okay, so nobody should go and now quote me out of context that Pastor Sola said, right? What I'm saying is that if you are always flying economy, you're going to be having economy conversations. It's just the fact, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's wrong to fly economy. And sometimes I deliberately fly economy for certain reasons, right? But if you are flying economy, the airlines themselves, they have already named the seat for you. It is economy. If you are flying business, the reality is that in business, you will find business. They have already named the seat for you. If you're in economy, you are in economy. People who are below you, guess what? Your mindset is always going to be below you. Yeah? But if you network with people that are above you, people that you're aspiring to become, then guess what? You would be inspired to the next level. Right? So if you are the one going around and saying, oh yeah, I was in Clubhouse the other day, and one guy said, look, I just thought to myself, why am I wasting my money keeping my private jet? I did the sums, and it's better for me to. Some people are still trying to earn an own private. Will determine how you think. I'm reading a book right now by Adam Grant called Think Again, and it was saying that your ability to think, and Google in the car is the worst thing that has happened to human beings because your brain has switched off. Because before Google, taxi drivers in London can take you anywhere, even without an A to Z. But now they need some kind of device to tell them, and actually sometimes the device will take you the wrong way anyway. Because your brain is not engaged. So your ability to allow your brain to engage and think has a way of increasing your ability to increase your net worth. Finally, the top of the spectrum is mentors and coaches. If you don't have mentors and coaches in your life, you can't increase your net worth. It's just fact. Because mentors have been to these places where you're trying to be, and they can show you shortcuts on how to get there. Let's keep going. Next slide. So, I was talking before about value and creative value. So if you start from the bottom, for you to be able to deliver value, you need to have innate in you the ability to go above and beyond. Whether you're working in the workplace, or you own a business, or you're providing a service, if you don't have that sense of an hour longer, I don't care, I'm not going to dictate to you, but you have to sit down and say, this day, today, I gave above and beyond. Right? So that's how you create value. Because what's expected of you as an employee is to do your job. Right? You shouldn't really get rewarded for doing your 9 to 5. Nobody should really, yeah, well done, you did your job. Right? Even the Bible says, when you have done everything that you're supposed to do, you are but what? An unjust servant. So even when you have done everything that you're supposed to do, so God is actually himself is expecting you to go a little bit over and beyond. So to create value at the bottom of the pyramid is your ability to deliver value. Next, humility. Your ability to listen. The generation we live in today, we all have our own opinion, we all have our own ideas, and we don't listen. And your lack of listening can impact your delivery of value. As a consultant, one of the key things you learn is to listen to the client. Listen to what the client wants. Because if I know what you want, then I can provide what you need. Yeah? Number 3, mirroring. Your ability to read a room, your ability to be talking to somebody who has a problem, and you can reflect how they are feeling. You can go into a business meeting and be like, hey, we're gonna slap this deal. And the guy is like, I'm not even sure I want to do the deal with you. Okay, so calm yourself down, mirror their expression. And try and bring them along the journey and say, well, I know you have some doubts right now, but what can I do to convince you, to make you get a better understanding that I can deliver value to you? That's what you call mirroring. Number 4, your ability to zoom in and out, curiosity. Sometimes we just hear something and we try and solve for what we are hearing, but we don't ask the surround sound. Yeah? I went into a room one day, sound was telling me this is a $7 million deal. But what was on the table was $100,000. And so with the help of my partner, when I say partner, I was working for a PricewaterhouseCoopers, and with the help of the partner who was on the project, we realized, hold a second, what's at play here? It's not 100,000. 100,000 is the keyhole. We need to get the whole door. And so we went in, delivered 100,000 value. When we delivered 100,000 value, a year and a half later, we'd been paid $7.5 million. Why? Because we listened to the surround sound. Surround sound. Don't just solve what is in front of you, listen to the surround sound of what's happening around you. Whether you're in the workplace and you work for somebody or helping an organization. And finally, your ability to solve problems, your talent is the key for you to deliver value. Next. So, when we're thinking about increasing, because today is about your ability to increase your net worth. We spent some time now just defining what your net worth is. Now we just spent a few minutes just thinking about what are the, you have to do seminars over a number of days to break it down. This is introduction, eye-opener, go study more at home. Number one, earnings is very, very important. Number two, how you increase your earnings yourself. So, yeah? Certain things from your tax. Do you take the time to understand what those deductions can be? If you don't, then you're leaving money on the table. Turning your talent to dollars. Because yes, you can have your 9-to-5 job, but maybe you're a good voiceover person. I know somebody who had several figures from doing voiceovers, commercials, advertisements. So she has a day job, but her real job is voiceover. You see what I'm saying? If you don't really settle down and have a clear business, I'm in business, leads, sales. So there are 30 people that I know today, in the last 3 months I've spoken to, they have stock, but they haven't increased sales. So if you want to increase your net worth, increase sales. No brainer. If you've produced something and you're not selling it, then find ways to sell it. You're trying to increase your net worth. Yeah, assets, yes, but you have liabilities. So the only way to remove the liabilities is to sell the stock. Finally, some people are lazy stock. They invest in stocks, but they're lazy. I tell people, if you're new to it, make a simple target. By the end of this year, I want my annual salary in stocks. That could be an ambition. Why not? If that's too big, start with your monthly salary. Just have a target. Don't just ask people, are you invested in stock? Okay. If you don't know, then guess what? You don't know. Okay, next slide. I think we need to pick up the pace. So, let me talk to people who are in full-time employment for a second, right? And this is not typical. I'm just trying to give you an example. If you're in full-time, your base salary, we've talked about that already. But most people, if you've been working for more than 5 years, I'm hoping that you're getting some kind of bonus. Whether it's performance-related bonus or retention, then you must be getting benefits. UK is very good for that, so you might have health benefit, dental benefits. All these benefits, they're actually money. They have monetary value. And then finally, your long-term incentives. That's kind of like your stocks that you can get in your organization. And I think anybody who is not getting these 4 elements should inquire why not. And it might be that your current job doesn't allow you to have that. Okay, understand. So then you need to make a change, right? Or you need to because this should be this, then investigate it and find out why not. Why you're not getting benefits, why you're not getting the bonus, next. And actually, no, so if you stay there for a second. No, I think the next slide does it. So go to the next slide. So I just took a mid-level person. Let me stay with tech. Should make up like 65% of your total comp. Yeah, your base salary. 65%. Then you should have another 15% coming from your bonus. Bear in mind, that this bonus can go up to 100%. Some people have 200% bonus, right? So, prepare for today. I remember back in 2009, my boss at the time was on 110% of her salary as bonus. 2009. So whatever your salary is, let's assume 200,000, you get the 200,000 plus another 10% on top of it. And you wonder how people make money. That's how people make money. If you have a bonus that is your whole salary, 100%, lump sum, not given to you monthly, given to you, boah. Yeah, one time. You know, the average salary, the average bonus that a partner at PwC would get, this is public information, so I'm not giving anything away, you can Google it yourself, for 2020 was 700,000. Doesn't matter what base salary you're on. Average, thereabout, average. Some get more, some get less. So if you are going to, I mean, if you're on 300,000, but at the end of the year, I'm going to give you 700,000. That's $1 million. Rent it out for 200,000, done. Annually, I just do that every year. Before you know it, I have all paid off properties. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we think about the culture we live in and how they make money, we have to study it, right? Okay. And then finally, your long-term incentives, which generally vested or unvested, will go over 4 years, 3 years, invested, non-invested. So if you get your whole salary over 4 years, meaning in 4 years' time, you get your whole salary in LTI. And so if you're not getting these kind of things in your already package, then think about why not and investigate when in your career can this come to you, right? Now, yes, not every job does this, and not every job I've done had this, but it's something you should aspire to if you're interested in increasing your network. Remember, if you're not interested in increasing your network, don't even bother about this slide. It doesn't matter, no? It's not important. Yeah? And I'm talking here to people who are in paid employment, right? Next slide. You know, actually, go back a second, 1 second. My former CEO at my current former CEO, not my CEO now, my former, his base was zero for 10 years. Yet today, he's the 7th or 8th richest man in South Africa. His base was zero. So me and you, we are still chasing base. He said, put my base at zero. Put everything else at LTI. That's what Steve Jobs did, remember? He took $1. But how rich was Steve Jobs? So there's a level you get to in work where you can zero out your base salary. And it's just a mindset shift. If I came to you and say, brother, my brother David, I want to give you a job, zero salary, zero. You'll be shabaing me. You will send pastor to come and pray for me. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's just a different, and actually you can Google it. How many people had zero salary? There are quite a lot. Zero salaries, $1 salary, but they're multimillionaires because they know long-term incentive. You know, that long-term incentive, they know that it is long-term. Yeah? Okay, next. So, let's say you haven't had any of these and you're about to change jobs. Then start thinking in this mindset. Number one, sign-on bonus. If somebody really likes you, why don't they pay you a sign-on bonus? Why not? It can be from $1,000 to up to $100,000. I can't tell you personal things, but I can tell you what I have signed off. I've signed off a $100,000 bonus for somebody before to join us. $100,000. So we're not talking about salary, we're talking about to join. Welcome, thank you for joining us. Then relocation or remote working. At the end, as you're looking for a new job, have these things behind your mind. What sign-on bonus can you? And you know, one thing, I'm in HR. So one thing, I think David, you're in HR too, right? One thing that people don't realize, you can ask for anything. When they give you a job, just make sure that they like you. Just, first of all, just make sure they like you first before you start negotiating. But if they like you, I say, well, in my old job, I was going to get a bonus, so maybe as a sign-on bonus, just ask. My headhunter said to me, never accept the first offer. Never. They're going to lowball you. Any company will lowball you. Unless they don't know their job. They will lowball you. See, start from down here. And if you have brain, because some of us, we don't have brain. And I'm not abusing, I'm just saying that we don't think. So that's what I mean. So we don't think. We don't think that, okay, hold on a second. What do I want? Right? Because if they offer me what you want, then okay, maybe it's fine. But if it doesn't meet what you want, then you need to negotiate. Yeah? So relocation, and then of course your base salary, your bonus, and then what are they going to give you to make this worth your while? Because your salary is to eat. Long-term incentive is to enjoy. Yeah? Summarize it for you. Let's assume you earn 100,000. Most of us, at best, would be able to live on 60% of that. So after tax, maybe tithe 10%, save 10%, invest 10%, and then 10% for other runnings. And the more money you have, the guy who was tithing 90% of his TV program the other day, and the guy said, well, this is what he said, not my words. You can talk to me privately later, I'll tell you. I just don't want to say the name on here, but it's in YouTube. The guy said, maximum, his network, they spend 50% of what they earn, maximum. So he said, what do you then do with the 85%? What do you do with the 85%? And so, when you get to a place where you only need 10% of your total income that's coming in. I know it's hard for us to imagine, particularly when I was working at security and I was earning £2.50 an hour. I was not eating 100%. I was eating 110%. So I think that's just something that we need to think about. Is like people who are wealthy, they get there because they're thinking beyond their base. When somebody says, me, when they pay me, I know that they paid me. There's some people that I've known. When we pay them, they're like, "Oh, did you pay me? Thanks for paying me." Because the money that is in the account is more than the money I just paid them. So when you get to that stage when there's enough money in your account, here's what you should try and do. Like, get to a place where you can pay all your bills for next month from last month's salary. Your network is beginning to show worth, right? Next slide. I know I'm getting over time now, but let's keep going. So, if you're looking for a new job or you're in a job, go to Glassdoor, research. The information is there. How much are they paying for your job in any other company? Research it. Research. Next slide. A mentor takes you on the road they have been and shows you shortcuts to the destination. That's why mentorship is so important. I don't think I've met a millionaire who didn't have a mentor. Show them the ropes, right? Actually, I don't like recommending books I haven't finished reading, but I'm going to recommend this book. It's called Baby Steps Millionaire. Baby Steps by David Ramsey. I haven't finished reading it, but let me read something to you from the book. Page 66. It says this: a faithful man, he's quoting the Bible, Proverbs 28:20. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Proverbs 28:20. This scripture is dead on straight up truth. A person with a slow, steady, predictable approach over time will overflow with abundance. But a person with a get-rich-quick mindset will get smashed just like I did. You can get wealth in a lot of ways, and you can get sudden fame. You can hit the lottery, one in a Brazilian people do. But the rest of us who are trying to get wealth quickly will get punished. And the punishment is losing your money, or worse, your soul. In other words, the quickest way to get rich is not quick. Proverbs 13:11 tells us, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. We don't use the words hasten or hastily too much in our language anymore, but what they do mean, you are into too big of a freaking hurry to get rich quick. That's what they mean. This verse is saying wealth gained quickly will fade away. It wouldn't last. But people who gather wealth, live little by little, will multiply it. I personally like the Message version. Hits it on the head. It says this: easy come, easy go. But steady diligence pays off. Diligently invest in your money, little by little, over time. The best way to get rich quick is to get rich slow. And later on in the book, he talks about the fact that 61% of NFL millionaires are bankrupt in 5 years after stop playing. Bankrupt. Not broke, bankrupt. It's crazy. Because they never understood how to manage wealth. So acquiring wealth is one thing, but being able to manage wealth? I think in the UK, the percentage is 15% of lottery winners stay wealthy after 5 years. 15%. The rest squander it. And worse, some of them, I think 20% are in debt. 5 years later after having earned $1 million, right, or $2 million. So having a mentor in your life really helps you, coaches you. And also, depending on where that mentor is, I have a friend that says to me, you know, minimum cash liquidity he always wants to have is 500,000. If he has less than 500,000 cash, he's broke. Think about that. I mean, that just blows, anything you're thinking about, that just blows it apart, right? And I said to him, I said, why will you not change your car? It's affecting my bank balance. I don't want it to affect my... So he has 500,000 sitting there in the bank, but he doesn't want to change his car. If it was me, yeah. Anyway, that's why God knows. So God knows your heart, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's really about mindset changing. Because if you can change your mindset, then you can become a high net worth individual. Sacrifices have to be made, you know? It's not all one way. So I only wanted to be practical today. And if you really have any, as part of my own assignment for preparing for today, I had to sit down and say, how many different streams of income do I, right? So earned income, which has 3 parts: salary, I earn money from that. I do speaking engagements like I'm doing now. I earn some money from that. I do crypto. I became a farm owner in Nigeria last year through Clubhouse. I was in a room, and now I have a cashew farm. I have a cassava farm in Nigeria, in your town. So there's one of my mentees there in her town. I'm on the directorship of some companies, so that gives me some stipend. And then finally I get tax rebates. So that's myself. That's 11 streams of income. Now, they don't all pay out at the same level, and one is my main income, but the question for you and assignment, take McDonald's. McDonald's makes more money from property than it makes from actually selling McDonald's. So McDonald's is a food business with a high-end real estate business behind it. Because they own most of the properties where the McDonald's is. Right? So, it's just important. And some of these things, we start late. You know, farmland, my other mentees, they've been doing this for 6-7 years. You know, me, I'm late comer, but now I'm there now, so I'm enjoying, right? So, and some of these things are not crazily expensive to invest in, but the return. So my farm returns this year is going to be 25%. Put ₦1 million down, you get 25% return, passive income, reinvest it. You see what I'm saying? Like, it becomes money that's working for itself. Next slide, please. Okay, so mentorship is a brain to pick, an ear to listen to, a push in the right direction. That's what Joe Crosby says. And as I bring this to an end, close to an end, we still have 2 more things to talk about. Let me just tell you my life story very quickly. Very quickly. It will be rapid. It's a long story, but it's rapid. Okay, so here we go. Put it up. For some people, I've seen this before because I use this in a lot of talks. So there's about 15 steps in my life story, and I'm going to animate it. So studied civil engineering at the University of Ife. Went to do my youth service as an engineer, was an engineer, and in Lagos. And then I flew out to London, came to London in 1993. When I got here, there was no engineering job, so I worked as a security guard, earning £2.50 an hour in Manchester, working in Mossad. And my claim to fame is that I fought one guy who had a knife, and I arrested him. So there you go. When I was working as a security guard, I determined in my mind that I was going to be the best security guard that was possible. And then I realized that in security, you need to move up the ranks, and to move up, you need to go into plain clothes. So doing small store detective. So I joined Securico, who at the time was doing store detectiving, and they were also doing bodyguarding. So I joined Securico, increased my pay to £4.75 an hour, thereabout, and I was doing like 12-hour shifts, 18-hour shifts. One night, I was doing an 18-hour shift in a nursing home in Manchester, in Hume, in Manchester. And while I was doing it, I looked up, and straight ahead of me on a notice board was a graduate placement at the University of Manchester for Black and Caribbean graduates. I'm thinking, I'm Black and I'm a graduate, so I will apply. And so I applied. That's point number 6 on the story. At this time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. I just wanted to get out of security and get into the marketplace, having studied civil engineering. And when I got into this graduate placement, I had 2 opportunities to either become an accounting professional or a programmer. So I went home, taught myself how to program, had enough confidence to become a programmer. And at the end of my graduate placement, which was 1 year, long story there, but I'll tell you another day. At the end of my graduate placement, I was asked by my boss to create my own job. They didn't have a job for me, but they wanted to keep me. So I created my own job called technical clerk. 24 other people applied. I also applied. And thanks be to God, I got the job, right? So for 2 years, I worked as a technical clerk. And at that time, I was honing my programming skills so I could be a better programmer and then go out and get a job as a programmer. And so 2 years into the job, I went out and applied to get a job as a programmer. And that takes you to point number 8. And I went to work for the College of Law in Guildford. I would say that when I joined the College of Law, I was the least skilled developer that they had. Like I was if there was a bottom, I was below the bottom. So it's only by the grace of God. So yeah, the grace of God does help. I was the lowest programmer they have ever employed. In fact, my boss took me a week before he took me. He said to me, I have no idea why we hired you. Said everybody else that came in after you, the technical interview, they were getting 8, 9, 10. And you and I know that in your technical interview, you got 0. If I didn't help you. So he helped me, and I got 6. That's how I got 6, because I was going to get 0. So he's the one that helped me, and I got 6. Right? So it's like, you and I know. I was there, you were there. You are not that good. But, 2 years in, when I was about to leave, I was recognized as one of the best programmers that they had in the company and didn't want me to go. And were willing to match my were willing to counter offer me. Because for 2 years, I slugged it out. I said, look, whatever it's going to take. When I finish my job at 6 o'clock, I'll go home, eat. After eating, I'm reading till midnight. I'm practicing, I'm coding. I found a different way to develop that any of them had. And I became the liaison between the business. And in fact, the business was now telling them to send me on training courses because they said, if this guy is this skilled and he doesn't even know how to program, then we need to train him. So all the programming training I got in 2 years made me that high-level programmer. Such that when I went to GlaxoSmithKline at point number 9, in the interview was me and my boss who were being interviewed for the same job. Well, I got the job, and we're still friends. So that's all. That's the most important thing. And so I went to GlaxoSmithKline. I got there. I realized that, hold on a second, this was when jobs were going out to India. So I realized that being a programmer might not be very lucrative in the UK. I mean, it's changed now. So I pivoted into business analysis, and I was there doing that for about a year. I realized, hold on a second, that is also going to India, and I moved into project management. And then I moved into program management, and the last job I did at GSK, I spent 7 years there. Last job I did at GSK was an outsourcing deal, where I was outsourcing our technology in both London and Philadelphia. So I was on a plane to Philadelphia every 2 weeks, North Carolina, basically lived out there, ran a team in Malaysia, and kind of got this feel of consultancy. And my team I was working with said to me, you know what, the way you behave, the way you talk, the way you manage us, you can be a consultant. You want to apply. So I applied to Accenture, they turned me down. 2 weeks later, Accenture then called me and said, oh, you know, we turned you down for that job, but here's another job that we think you're going to be perfect for. I got the job. Now, here's the story I don't really tell people. When I got the job at GSK wrote to Accenture and said, we don't want to let this guy go, but can you delay his start so he can finish the project that he's been working on? Or should we release him earlier and then we hire him to come and work for us? Because we need him to finish this project. And so that's how I got a retention bonus from Accenture and a retention bonus from GlaxoSmithKline to stay to finish the project. So I finished the project on the 30th of September. We went live on the 29th. When 30th of September, handed my laptop back. 1st of October, I was working at Accenture. I'm just saying that sometimes, you know, what you don't think is valuable becomes a valuable asset, right? And so, got to PwC. Was in Accenture for 2 years, and then I got headhunted by PricewaterhouseCoopers to join over and start up their HR technology practice. I joined as a manager, and I got promoted to senior manager. And this is where mentors come in. And I haven't really talked about it, but as you can see, there are green things and yellow things on there. But Laura and Barry were just outstanding mentors that really helped me shape my career, the direction I was going to go. And then I was blessed to be invited to apply to be a director of PricewaterhouseCoopers. You have to be invited. You can't just get promoted to it. So I applied, went through the process. I became a director, headed up my own function. I was heading up success factors for SAP in the UK and part of Europe. And somewhere along the line, point 12, my boss and I had a chat, and he told me basically that my face doesn't fit, that he doesn't think I'm going to reach the next level. The next level was to become a partner. And I was like, I didn't have a plan B. Like, 7 years in, this was my plan. Like, 2 years from now, I'll be a partner, you know, sitting on a cool 1 million per annum. I'm good, right? And so I resigned with no job to go to because I thought that was the right thing to do to kind of clear my mind, resigned. After 2 months of the process, my boss said to me, like, I said your face doesn't fit. I beg, begin to go now. So he gave me a non-compete, basically, I could literally walk out of the job and go and do another job, and he paid me 4 months in advance. So my mentors at the time, who were on the board, said to me, just take it as an early holiday, go and enjoy yourself. So I did. I took a month off, went traveling, went to Nigeria, etc. When I came back, I was like, no, I want to work now. So I was already in processes, and I got a phone call. This is where network is very valuable. I got a phone call from a lady who I worked with at HSBC. She called me and said, Sola, you know the problem you fixed was at HSBC? I said, yeah. We have the same problem in Deliveroo. Would you come over and help us? I said, look, right now, I'm in between jobs. I don't even have a job I'm going to. She said, doesn't matter. When you get to your new consultancy, I'll be your first customer. Just tell them that actually you're bringing a customer. In the end, they negated on something. So I was going to be head of Europe, but they said they were not sure when they wanted to open the European branch anymore. So while they were just wasting time, I called my friend. I said, look, Beth, what do you think? Should we just go for it? She said, yeah, come in on Wednesday, have a chat. Come in on Monday, and on Wednesday I started. As a contractor, after 2 weeks, the CEO himself said, this guy is going nowhere. Let's make him permanent. So that's how we got permanent. That's how I got back in the industry. And so that's point 13. Did that for about 15 months, head of people operations globally for 13 countries. And then I got headhunted by Prosus, Naspers, who are a technology investor, own companies like PayU, OLX, Tencent, 30% of Tencent. They used to own MultiChoice, Super Sports. We've offloaded that now. And, last year, I got promoted to Vice President Global People Technology. So that's my journey. But it started with a £2.50 an hour job in Manchester. So I just use that to kind of show you that it's not always straight, but you've got to be determined and intentional about where you want to go, and then you'll get there. Next slide. So who are you? Right? Because I've been talking a lot, but really, at the end of the day, your net worth is about you. So who are you? Next slide. What's your mission? Why do you want to increase your net worth? Is it just to give more, to show more, to prove more? You need to understand what your mission is. You need to understand for yourself what motivates you as a person. What rewards do you expect? Hopefully I've opened your mind today about what rewards you expect. So a lot of us, we just expect a salary. But I would say you should go into work expecting a salary, a bonus, some form of stocks and shares, some form of benefits, right? Change that mindset a little bit. What is your purpose in life? Because your purpose sometimes determines how much cash has to flow into your hands. A friend of mine told me a story the other day. He said, he earned more than me, but I made an intentional purpose that all my kids will be privately educated. So that means I made sacrifices. And he said he watched me and he was like, how can this guy afford private education for 3 kids? How is he doing it? Then it occurred to him, one of the things occurred to him, that he looked at my shoes. And he said that this guy wears the same shoes every single day. I will want to buy a shoe, until the shoe needs shoemaker, I don't buy another shoe. Whereas he buys a new pair of shoes almost every week. And doesn't even buy normal shoes, he buys them from churches. And he said, okay, so that means if I'm going to send my kids to private school, I need to make that sacrifice. And he did. And guess what? All his kids were privately educated also. Choices. So what purpose do you have in life? What defines you? Are you defined by the fact that you drive a BMW, a Audi, you live in a multi-million house? Is that what defines you? My uncle had 15 properties all over Nigeria. One day he just said, you know what, that doesn't define me. He sold them all, built an 8 flats, rented it out to British Airways. He's like, don't sell your property, they're long term. It's like, what defines you? The fact that I have 15 properties is not what defines me. What rights do you have in Christ? So, what is, Pastor Emin, when he was inviting me to speak about this, he said, look, in Christ we are more than conquerors. Our Father owns the cattle upon 1,000 hills. But do I really know that, and do I exercise that in the workplace? Or do I leave God behind and then I go into the workplace? Do I leave God behind and I go into business? Do I leave God behind and I go into my academics? Do I leave God behind? So what rights do you have in Christ? What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the threats that you see? And do you have a healthy approach to life? Like, do you have, I don't believe in work-life balance. Sorry, I don't. And I'm in HR, I don't. What I believe in is being present. So when I'm at home, I'm present at home. When I'm working, it's not the time for me to do it Instagram. No, it's not. If I'm doing my 9 to 5 correctly, I should be able to do all my work in my 9 to 5. And if I can't, then I'm doing extra. But I shouldn't be updating my Instagram or my YouTube when I'm working. I'm not maximizing. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, and I'm home. When I'm doing my Instagram, I'm just Instagramming, right? And so I just prefer to say, be present in all the activities that you're doing. Be present. Be 100% there. When you're with your kids, don't be sending text messages and doing email, because it's your time. When you're with your spouse, be focused. Enjoy the moment. If possible, turn off your phone. Enjoy that moment. Be present. Now, you can't always do it. There might be a crisis at work, but if your intention is right, then you will make it work. Next slide. Life is about accepting the challenges along the way, choosing to keep moving forward, and savoring the journey. Enjoy this. Like, you got to enjoy this whole process of building your network. It shouldn't, your net worth. It shouldn't be drudgery. It shouldn't be, we have to be like them. We have to be like the Joneses. No, just enjoy. You will get there. And there's no age limit. You know, the guy who started McDonald's, or the guy who made McDonald's was how old? He was 58. Before McDonald's became what it is. He was 58. Time that he should be retiring was when he just started kicking off the business. Next slide. All right. Like I said, I love to encourage people to read, so I've put 4 books there. Dr. Seuss says the more you read, the more things you will know, the more you learn, the more places you will go. The best book I read in 2021 is called Betting on the Darky, the story of Beto, how he became the guy he is in South Africa, former CEO of MTN, former CEO of Microsoft, How to Lead Smart People, it's an amazing book. High Potential Leaders by Ram Chandra, somebody I really duly respect in the marketplace. And then this book by Tim, Tribe of Mentors. It's just a beautiful collection. It's a huge book, actually. It's like an encyclopedia. It just gives you insights to different people's lives, different industries. Next slide, and I think we're done. Yeah. All right. So what I'm told is that we're going to take a short break, and then after the break, you can grill me with questions. So if you're online, please put your questions in in Slido. Okay, Slido. Go into Slido, and our host will be selecting the questions that she's going to choose to grill me with, having allowed me to speak for the last hour or so. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and we have a quick break.
I'm not moved by circumstances. I trust in your promises. I don't care if all have failed me. I know you cannot fail. Nothing can take away my joy. This joy I found in you. 'Cause you are my all in all. Hey, we've been made loves through the night, but I see you in my morning. Joy on every side. Thank you for always showing up. Nothing can take away my hope. You say now. 'Cause you are my all in all. When you step in, everything turns around for good. But I see you in my morning. We see you, God, every single time. Every single time. Only fair, oh. So I pour my love on you. Yes, Lord, yes.
Hello again, everybody. Can we regroup for those in the room? Thank you so much, Pastor Shola. That was amazing. Yes. You need your microphone. Once again, if you want to ask questions, please do so on Slido. We'll take questions via Slido. So thank you so much, sir. I think that was, for me, that was inspirational. There were parts of what you mentioned there that sort of really resonates with where I am in terms of my own career at the moment. So I think the question I'm going to start with is you spoke a bit at the start around, there's a general statement, certainly that I've heard a lot, that people say, 9 to 5 doesn't pay. And I love the way you sort of broke it down, that there are ways that you can, make 9 to 5 sort of work for you. So in terms of the considerations you make before you go into a new role, pay, base pay, those long-term investments and things. My question is, from a professional perspective, because it sounds like you sort of navigated across different sectors. So if there's somebody watching online today and they're thinking, well, I'm still sort of doing that £2.50 an hour job, what do they need tangibly to take with them into that new role in terms of making that shift from a financial perspective? What more, are there tools or things that you think they can access?
I mean, there's definitely tools, but I'm probably going to go more basic than tools, right? So number one is always be learning. So even when I was working £2.50 an hour job, what was interesting was that I actually, at the same time, got a diploma in editing. I got a diploma in management. So I was studying because I had hours to work. So I kept studying. I kept learning. I kept investing myself, learning. So I think the first thing is that as long as you're willing to keep learning, then there's an opportunity for you to grow as an individual, right? So being willing to learn is definitely the first thing I would say. The second thing is get a mentor, right? Get a mentor, get a coach. Then the third thing is understand the environment you're in. Because if you're in an industry that requires certain levels of experience before you can be promoted, then the question is how you're going to get that experience. If you're in an industry that requires you to do certain things, then the question is how you're going to do that. So study the environment that you're in. And I always say to people that when you join a company, make sure you love the company. Because if you don't love the company, you won't understand the company. If you don't understand the company, you can't progress in the company. So 3 things then, just let me summarize that. 1, always be learning. Like even now I'm still learning. Like last year I read 10 books. Wow. Right? And this year I've already read 3. Right? So always be learning. There's always something new to learn. There's always a different approach, number 1. Number 2, find a mentor or a coach. And then number 3, understand the environment in which you're operating in.
Thank you to our joiners, looking for the word there, who are asking questions on Slido. There's quite a few coming through. There's another question which is sort of similar to what you just answered now, but I'll ask it anyway. And the person is saying, that transition from being in security to what is a really senior role now, how did you sort of position your mind in terms of making that shift? I know it's a journey, but what are some of the key things that really stood out for you in terms of making that move from sort of going from A to B? How did you transition across all of these different points? I think there was about 15, 16 points on that journey map.
I think how I transitioned was I made up my mind that the uniform I wore as a security guard did not define me. The fact that I wore a uniform, in fact, I did a podcast with a friend of mine, a partner at PwC, and he was just asking me about my career, and he titled the podcast, and I can share it later. He called it, "What You Wear Does Not Define You." So the fact that I was wearing a security guard uniform didn't define who I was. I was a civil engineering degree holder working as a security guard. So my job should not define me, whether big or small. It shouldn't define me. I am who I am. And I think understanding that you are who you are, that you're going through a journey, is very important. And one thing that also helped me, I think, when I think about moving from security into the university was when I filled out the application form, because then we were still filling out by hand, it got to a box where it wrote other. And I thought, how can I stand out? I know there are going to be many people applying for this job. And so in the box other, I wrote, I will give you 101% commitment. It caught the eye of the deputy director, John Wilson, so he came and interviewed me himself. When he got to the interview, he said, there's standard questions that we asked, but I'm looking at your CV and you've only done security for the last 18 months. So I'm going to change this interview around. Tell me how you will secure this university, and that's how you're going to pass this interview or fail it. So if I was just a security guard without understanding how security guard works, I would have failed that interview. Because at the end, when he finished the interview, he said to me, 3 of the things you told me today, I'm going to implement on Monday. Wow. 3 of the things, right? I'm going to implement them on Monday. But what is more important is 3 years later, and my leaving due in the University of Manchester, I still have the card at home. He came into the room and held up my application form, turned to the back page and said, when shall I apply for this job? He said, I'll give you 101% commitment. I'm sure that all of you can attest to, about 45 people in the room, you can attest to that's exactly what he did.
Wow. That's the power of integrity.
Yeah.
Making action back what you say. Thank you so much for that, Pastor Shola. So we have quite a few questions coming in. Someone wants to know how you choose the right mentor or coach.
So how do you choose the right mentor or coach? There are many schools of thought on this. But I think the one I respect the most is Simon Sinek. So if you Google Simon Sinek, he talks about mentorship being somebody who, first of all, you consider somebody you respect, and somebody you would like to be friends with, right? So you don't just walk up to anybody right up in the street and say, will you be my mentor, right? You don't even know them. So you get to know your person you ask you to be your mentor. And somebody that inspires you, right? Those are the 2 things. And I actually do a 7-point. I have a 7-point principle on how to choose a mentor. But it starts with, who are they? What are their values? Right? You might see somebody and they look successful, but if you don't know them, how do you know they'll be good for you? So get to know the person. Don't just go for glam and glitter. And actually, the best mentor I've ever had was given to me. Right? So Barry was the best mentor I've ever had, and he's still my mentor today. But he was given to me. He was matched for me by my company. So sometimes you might not find them. They might come to you, or they might come knocking on your door. But yeah, I think start with somebody you respect, somebody you aspire to, and then somebody you think at the end of the day you would like to be friends with. That would be what I would say.
Thank you so much for that. So you find somebody that you respect, someone you admire, find the right fit when it comes to a mentor. Thank you for that question, Williams. The next question is, how do you manage all of the family commitments and still be able to effectively be as productive as you are?
I think that depends on your stage of life, right? So the stage of life has an impact on you. So the biggest ramp up in my career, I had 2 kids under 5. Yeah? So when I was traveling the world, I had 2 kids under 5. So having a spouse that's supportive and understanding your strengths and your weaknesses is very, very important. So like the first time I went traveling, when I came back on Saturday, so I came back on a Friday, and on morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, to 9 o'clock at night, I'll be ironing. Because my wife doesn't like ironing. Well, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock, they would just lock me in the room and I'll be ironing. From the kids' clothes to my clothes to her clothes. And then my wife was like, no, this is not working for her. Let's outsource it. So you just have to think about what are the things that are important to you, what are important to your spouse, what is important to your family. And I love my kids. So people that know me, I love my kids and I love spending time with my kids. So to put all of those things into balance does take a lot of thinking and planning. But it takes intentionality also. You have to be intentional about what you're trying to do. And pray that God gives you some breakthroughs. So part of the breakthrough that happened for me, like the biggest ramp up in my career, my family were living in Nigeria, my kids were in a school in Nigeria, so I could do all I needed to do. I could be in Glasgow every week, because my family were in Nigeria, but I went to Nigeria every 6 weeks, So more importantly, like, which stage are you in? Are your kids still under 5? Are they now older? Like now, I travel. My kids, one is married, the other one is in university, the last one is about to go to university. I think my career is about to ramp up another level because now I don't have those solid commitments to tie me down. But I think having a spouse that's understanding, and this could work either way. Most of my bosses have been women who have had stay-at-home husbands, right? And so it can work either way, but the most important thing is that do you have a chemistry that makes this work?
Fabulous. You've got to make it work for you. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to bring the questions back sort of towards a bit around the investment opportunities now.
Yeah.
Just to remind everybody in the Graceland, you will have a sheet of paper that has sort of, we're calling it the Increasing Your Net Worth Pledge. So please make sure you take time to actually fill it out. Make sure you try and network. There's somebody in this room that you haven't ever spoken to before you arrived here. So your network is your net worth. That's what they say. There's somebody in this room that can really make a difference to your career, your business, or your journey. So please go around, introduce yourself, and also make sure you fill out those points. So on the back of what you've heard, I keep having this thing about Dr. Sola, so there's probably a PhD somewhere that you need to
I'll be honorary. I'm not studying again.
Please, on that sheet, it says, what are you going to do on the back of what you've heard Pastor Sola say today? More, what you're going to do better, what you're going to do different, and what you're going to do less. Take time to actually write those things down. Bible says, write it down, make it plain. That's where you have a personal commitment to yourself, that these are the things I'm going to do today on the back of what I've heard from the session today. So this question takes us back to that point around investments. And the person says, what are the pointers that you can give sort of in terms of people that are new to the UK? How do they build those investment networks and those investment opportunities? Because sometimes it can feel a bit like a maze because you don't know anybody, and it's very easy these days with all the stuff we see on social media to fall into the wrong, to go down a rabbit hole, as they say. So what pointers can you give people? I know you spoke earlier around, your sort of investment style. So you only, you go for things that sort of give you dividends. Yeah. That's it. I'm very risk averse as a person. So, if it's too good to be true, I generally tend to shy away from it. But then that doesn't mean that, there isn't an investment opportunity in those things. So what can you share in terms of, for people that are new to the UK, but also for people who might already have investments in terms of what they can start to consider over and above?
So even though I was born in London, I went back to Nigeria and grew up most of my time in Nigeria. When I came back, I remember the very year I came back, I think it was July. That December, I went to visit my uncle. At the time, my uncle was working for Slumbridge, and we were going out for I think it was a Christmas service. And I don't even know why he was prompted to do this. And he sat me down and he said, you know what? You and I know those uncles who came back from abroad, had lots of cars, then 10 years later, they were broke. Or they had a house and they had to sell it. So he said what he's done is that he got involved in investment trusts, which you call ETFs today, or mutual funds. And he said, as I'm sitting here now, I have a fund that's going to pay for my daughter that's not born her university fees. And all I have to do is pay £25 a month. I have another fund that's going to pay off my car, $25 a month. I have another fund that's going to pay off my house, in 15 years' time. And so he had all these small mutual funds that were paying off bit by bit, you know. And he got to a stage where he didn't even need those funds anymore because he grew wealthier. But his mindset from the beginning was build small, build with what you can afford to lose, and then watch it grow. So my first investment in the UK was Foreign and Colonial Investment Trust, which has been around for about 100 years and have a guarantee on return. So you don't lose your money, but you don't gain huge either. But I thought I wanted my kids to privately educate, so I started a trust for privately educating my kids. You understand? So I think just start small. Start with what you can genuinely let go of. 25 a month. You know, I'm in crypto, but I don't put hundreds of pounds in it. I put what I think at the end of this month, okay, this could have been a dinner, put it into crypto. So if I lose it, that was just a dinner. So if I do that every month, if you do 50 pounds a month, that's 600 at the end of the year. You make 10% on that, what is that? 660. You make 20% on that, 720. You do that again, you do that for 5 years, all of a sudden, a couple of grand. Yeah? So start small, you know, like I read in the book, don't try and get rich quick, because if you do, you want to blow, but you'll be hit.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
God. There was a powerful statement you made just in that response you just gave now, Pastor Shola, around build with what you can lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have sight of how tangible some of these things are, no matter how small. I think it was £25 you gave in that example there. And, you know, the point you were making there starts to sort of looking to compounding as a way of sort of building net worth.
Yeah.
So do you want to sort of share a bit more around that? Like, what have you seen in that space, in your personal investments, for example, in terms of that? I think you gave an example about a lady who invested £1,000 and then over 20 years it became $1 million. You start to see a thread in all of the things that I've picked from what you spoke about today. So that for me talks to that point around compounding. Is there anything you can share with the people here today or those online around, you know, how that can support people to also build their net worth?
I mean, you made a good point about compounding, right? So the whole idea about investment is allowing your investment to grow. It's the whole idea that we have in scripture about don't eat your seed, right? So allow your investment to grow. One of the best things you can do, particularly if you're doing an investment trust, is to say, reinvest my dividend. Because if you reinvest your dividend, that means no money comes to you right now, but later on in life, you will get that value back. And that's why some people are doing ETFs. Now, I don't do ETFs. There's a reason why. Because I feel that ETFs is a lazy man's approach to investment, right? If you're risk averse, you don't have the time, and you can't keep an eye on it, then do ETFs. Because then somebody else is managing your money on your own behalf, right? So there are many different ways. But I think the whole idea is if you put a seed in the ground, I don't know where you did this in secondary school, Greek. They tell you to go and plant corn. You are going there every day. Has it grown? Has it grown? Has it grown? It's not going to grow. Nothing is going to show. But one day, poof, you see a leaf. And so the whole idea about investment, particularly long-term investment, is the first word, long. Allowing the seed to germinate. A lot of people that made money from Bitcoin didn't start investing in Bitcoin in the 1990s. They invested in 85, 86. They bought at what? 25 cents? Right? Warren Buffett has a word. He says this. In fact, he told the people that were investing in Berkshire Hathaway Class A shares, if I invite you to invest, you do not sell the share unless you die. So Berkshire Hathaway shares, most of the shareholders are the original shareholders. Berkshire Hathaway stock, if we're going to buy it today on the American stock market, is $100,000 a share. I don't know what it is right now, but you know, it's been $100,000 a share. Why? Because the value that was attached to that share was you don't sell the share. It's a share that you give. It's like when you buy a Patek. A Patek is not something that you give away. It's something that you leave to the next generation. It's a watch. Like, you bought it, but it's an investment. Like, maybe many, many years to come, this is going to have value. And so, having this mindset of coming into stocks for long term, you know. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you panic. I remember when the Barclays thing happened many, many years ago. I bought, sold, and then the next thing it's like, it has gone up again. And I'm like, oh no, it's down again. Like, you need liver. Sorry. Yeah, you need liver. You need liver. So I think the main thing is, particularly if you're not a day trader, invest for the long term. And even if you're a day trader, you know you need to put some time into it to really monitor and watch your stocks grow. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you, sir. Just to add, you can ask questions on Slido for those watching live on YouTube. Okay, so we're sort of pivoting again to a different part of what you talked about today. And this is around your sort of coaching and mentorship sort of stream of income is the way the person's positioned the question. Just to say that, you know, after the Q&A, there is an opportunity to network for those joining us live in the room. There will also be an opportunity to ask an HR and recruitment professional questions. I think we're actually going to bring them up on stage live to take questions as well. So this person wants to know how you navigate becoming a coach or a mentor, and whether you can share something around what you do personally, Pastor Sola, as well in that space.
So I try and stay away from coaching because I feel that it's a saturated market and there are lots of methodologies, and all you need to do is Google, LinkedIn, and there are lots of John Maxwell coaches, particularly amongst Nigerians, lots of John Maxwell coaches, right? And I'm not against it. I just think it's it's not me. I prefer to share from life experience. And you can see even today as I'm talking, it's more from a mentoring. I've been there, I'm telling you where I've been. And so I spend a lot more time in the mentoring space. I do coach one or two people, but it's not an area of strength for me. So I don't want to speak too much to that point, but you can learn a lot about coaching. And I would say, if you want to be a coach, then go get trained, invest the money to be trained, and then use the methodology correctly, and then you'll be a good coach. But when I speak about mentoring is really about sharing your own experiences, listening to people, and giving back. And for many, we just to iterate the emphasis, I did that for free because I didn't have a business model around it. But just in COVID, one of my mentees was sitting across the table from me, and she said to me, like, bro, you gotta make money from this. Now, the intention here is not about making money. It's more around, do people value the time that you're investing to invest in them? And so you need to put a dollar value to the time that you're investing in people, so you get rid of people that are wasting your time. And the reality is that I've been in situations where I'm chasing the mentee. Like, come on, let's talk. I'm trying to help you. I beg now, right? So I think that really helped me change my mindset around it. Like, I still do some that I will call, social enterprise where I mentor for free. But generally, if you come to me and say you want me to mentor you, there is a price there, right? Now, people pay prices, at different prices that you can get mentored in your workplace, etc. But for me, I kind of value it more on a per hour basis because to some degree, you can really push mentoring to some kind of counseling. It's almost like a counseling, kind of an engagement. It's a listening and a speaking back. So that's what I do. And I started, actually getting people to pay for mentoring from 2 years ago. So that's what I do. But there are many methods, many different. But I encourage other people to charge also. Now, remember, the charge is not the key point, right? I was reading a book called Winning, right? I read a lot of books. Winning by Tim Gruser. He was the coach of Michael Jordan. It's a great book. Like, you know when you read a book and you throw it away? That, no, I don't want to listen to what you're saying. So that was how I felt about the book. I threw it away. I was like, nah, you're getting into my head. Because he was saying that if you want to do something and you really want to win at it, you got to really put 100% into it. And I realized I don't really want to become a multimillionaire because I'm a mentor or coach. I don't want it. That's not what I'm doing it for. It's not really about the money. So I'm not going to ever try and become, John Maxwell, right? But I do want to do it as a way of giving back. So it kind of then determines how you engage in that space. It's not my primary source of income, it's one of my sources of income. And so it's more taking a hobby or something that you enjoy doing and putting a dollar value to it. Some other people, this is the only thing they do, and so therefore they've got to drive it like a business. So the question to the person who asked the question is, are you looking at this as a way to give back, so it's a passive income, or is it going to be your primary source of income? And then the way you approach it will be very different.
That is so powerful. So put value to your time, I think was the first thing I picked in what you just, your response to that. And also put what you do sort of on a social level into the frame. So how do you put a business model to something that you do sort of socially? What are some of the ways I think you mentioned it just now around how you sort of put a framework to your mentorship, which you sort of did socially, but what are some of the practical steps that people can take to sort of put an idea put a model to an idea, to sort of build an alternative source of income or an alternative source of wealth?
I think you need to put a strategy around it, right? So I honestly tell you that I wouldn't be a person that says I now earn income from coaching and mentoring if it wasn't that I was challenged by a mentee to put a structure around it. Right? So mentorship doesn't mean one way. It could be two ways, right? So it was reverse mentoring. She challenged me, supported me, showed me examples. She said, you do exactly what this guy does. Go and look at what he does. Look at how he charges, look at how he... So it's about learning and then making it your own and then deploying it.
Wow, I love that. Learning, owning it, and deploying it.
Yeah.
Powerful. Okay.
You could tweet that. Learn, own, deploy. Yeah?
I love it.
Hashtag.
I love it. It's powerful. We'll take one more question. Oh gosh, there's more coming in. Williams is asking, you mentioned about focusing 100% on what you do at a particular time. So for people who run more than one source of income or business.
If it's the William I think it is, then I know what he's asking the question.
How do you focus on the management side?
Yeah. So the thing is that if you find yourself being a multi-business manager, right? So by virtue, you got to manage it, right? But then the best way to do it is to assign time to it, right? What we say that, don't worry, I'll get there. I will do that at some point. But the reality is that if you don't assign time to it, even taking your own diary and putting in 20 minutes for my mentoring, 20 minutes to prepare my books for my accounts, or 1 hour for this. So you've got to be intentional and deliberate about how you spend time on those things. You also have to think about what are the things that you don't need to spend time on, because it's not everything in your portfolio that you need to spend time on, right? So think about me in my day job. I work for 83 companies. Those 83 companies don't need me every single day. But some of them, because of size, need me 24/7. And some of them, because of size, need me once a month. So it's about you prioritizing and understanding which of your customers needs your time, and then have planned time for them. So it's really about planning, right? It's about planning. So take the time to plan your time to be able to respond and actively engage in all areas of your life.
That is powerful. That is powerful. We'll take one more question, and this one says, other trading platforms and stock opportunities exist. Let's just put a disclaimer there. But they just want to know, what do you recommend in terms of stock trading. What are your thoughts? What, you know, if someone wanted to go into to sort of investment tomorrow morning, what would you say are some of the sort of opportunities available out there that they can pick up on? I don't have Clubhouse as an app, but you've mentioned it a couple of times now that I'm already gonna download it. So something like that. What can people? And other platforms exist as well besides Clubhouse, by the way.
And then also we have to do the. I wish I could remember the exact wording. There's a wording that goes like, disclaimer. It goes like, everything. I'm not a financial advisor, and everything I say is dependent on financial regulatory authority. And past results is no evidence of future. Yeah.
And the scale and cost of investments can go up and down.
Yes, it can. But let me like, if you're serious about this, there are too many. Yeah. Like right now, there are too many, right? But there are some that have good reputation, right? So I say to people, first of all, think about what you're trying to do. So some people go for a UK-only platform. Okay, that means you don't want to invest in Apple, or, you know, some people like to invest partially in a stock, right? They want to buy 0.25% of a stock. So there's some trading platforms that allow you to do that. Me, I don't like that. So I'm not going to be on that trading platform. I don't. So if I buy an Apple, I'm buying the $273 that it is, right? I don't want to buy partial. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you have to know what you are trying to do. So you understand what you're trying to do. Like my wife, for example, uses Trove because we invest from Nigeria in Naira abroad, right? I use Trade Republic because I'm living in Germany and I want to invest in anything I want to be able to invest. So with Trade Republic, and also the cost of transaction. So Trade Republic will only charge me a euro for every transaction. Whether I'm buying 1 million shares or I'm buying 10, they charge me $1. So those are the kind of things that you have to think about. Barclays, for example, will charge you six pounds for every transaction. Doesn't matter how much you're buying. Whether you're selling 2 or you're selling 1, they're going to charge you 6. Now, you might be convenient for you to go with Barclays because you're back with Barclays, so everything's in one place. So it's really about do your research, right? Some are commission-free, some are commission-based, some are easy for you to get your money out, some are hard. You know, you sell your stock today, you have to wait 4 working days before your money comes to you. You know, some people give your money back instantly, right? So think about why you're doing it, when you need to execute and liquidate your platform, how fast you want the turnaround time. Those are all the things you have to think about. Because remember, this thing that it's a business, right? So they too are doing business with your money. So the moment you say you want to sell, they're already going to get commission on the 3 days that they're holding your money for. So it's really about, I've given you 2, for example, Trove, Trade Republic. I mean, there are many. I mean, in the room, just tell me some that you use, yeah? Pardon? Interactive investments, okay. IG index. And then if you're into crypto, there are other places that you have to go. Like, you know, Ijile crypto, right? Me, we are surface. Like, you can use PayPal. PayPal allows you to invest in crypto. So,
for those that don't know, Ijile means
deep.
Yeah, that's it. Deep. Yeah, I was
deep.
gonna say background, but sorry. Yeah, deep. Okay, we're gonna take a short break now with another video, and then we're gonna bring on the recruitment experts, the HR professional. I think we can have Pastor Shila in that session as well. But please, for those in the room, please help me give him a huge round of applause. For those online, emojis will work. Whatever it is, please. I mean, I think I've been so blessed just listening to him. There are hints and tips that I'm going to take away. There's going to be an opportunity, as I said earlier, in the room as well to network. If this is the first time on our YouTube feed, you're new, you just come across this live video on YouTube and you're thinking, what are these people about? Please indicate, I'm new. Somebody will connect with you and share more about KingsWord London. But please help me give Pastor Shila a roaring applause this afternoon. He's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Don't go away. We're going to be back. We're going to watch a short video, and then we'll be back again. Thank you. Okay, I think we're back. Thank you so much, everybody, for staying. For those online, thank you for staying. For everybody in the room, thank you for being here. So we're just going to move on now to the next part of today, which is focused on sort of that human resource element and also recruitment. Actually, it's really interesting. So my BSc is in HR and IT. I'm going to let everybody sort of introduce themselves and tell you what they do as a day job. But I'm also I am still a program manager for a few more days within financial services, and I've done that for quite a while. I've got David.
You can't escape for a few more days. What happened?
I'll see you in camera. I'll come and see you in camera, sir.
Okay. Well.
But yes, I've got David. So David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tao. I'm David Adebi, resourcing business partner, and I look after the workforce of NMC.
Thank you. Pastor Emmanuel Akilaja.
Well, hello everyone. Pastor Emmy here. So I'm Deputy HR Director for a university in London, and I've been in HR for quite some time in the UK as well. So hopefully we can share some things with you today about how to navigate some of the corridors of power and politics to get up into that high-level position.
Absolutely. And obviously, you've all met Pastor Sola, but I'll let him introduce himself in a professional capacity this morning. Sorry, this afternoon, actually.
Yeah. So, Sola Osinoiki, I'm the Vice President of Global People Technology, which means I support all the people systems within the firms that we operate for life cycle. So starting from the HR life cycle, so all the way from recruiting all the way to exit. So any systems that are required within our around 83 businesses, I'm responsible for the HR platforms that we use.
A very big portfolio. Thank you, sir. So please ask your questions on Slido. I think the focus of this session is to, speak to people who are maybe in the process of transitioning from a role to another role, or you're looking for a job, or you're in that at early careers, or sort of mid-level as well. What are some of the tips, hints that you'd like to hear this afternoon? We've got 4 senior professionals in the UK ready to take your questions. So please fire the questions up on Slido. I'll start. I think, Pastor Shola has spoken a lot about career transitioning. And Pastor Amy, I'm going to come to you first, and then we'll sort of go in turn. What are your thoughts in that space, transitioning from sort of lower level to mid-level career?
Well, I think everyone should be considering it. And I feel like one of the things that happens, I think this happened to me. So I remember when I was going to make transitions from one role to the other, I was thinking I need several years, much more experience before I can start thinking about applying for that next level. And I remember that it was somebody in my organization that was saying, look, you can do everything that these guys are doing. You don't need to wait. He said, start applying for those jobs now. Start putting in your heart in the ring to move to that next role now. And I was thinking, oh no, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to have all these years of experience under my belt. And the guy said, no, just apply for the next job. And I did, right? And within 6 to 9 months of beginning to apply for that job, I was able to move into that next level because I was belittling what I had and the experiences I had. And this person that was looking from the outside, which is why Pastor was saying, look, you need to take an assessment of where you are and what you are able to do and think a bit more broadly about what you can accomplish with what you have. And so he took somebody else looking at me and saying, look, I work with these other people. There is nothing that they are doing that you cannot do. And within 9 months, I was already in that next role. A role I was thinking I need several years in my current role before I can apply for, I was in that role within 12 months. And I was already like showing the other people how to do the role that they had been in the whole time. So I think a lot of times people are thinking, I need to spend X amount of time here before I can go to the next level. The reality is that other people are already making that transition and they are not as good as you are. So don't devalue yourself or belittle yourself. If there's a level you want to get to, start looking at those job descriptions, start looking at what's required for that role, and start putting your application through. And the reality is that if people shortlist you, it means that they believe you can do the job, or they are willing to give you a chance at doing the job. You know, a lot of times people go for interviews, they don't get the job, and they think, oh, it was a waste of time from the beginning. I'm telling you, if you're even shortlisted, it means that somebody believes you are the right candidate for this job. Whether or not you get the job, they believe that you can actually do the job. And so you should be fired up. You shouldn't be disappointed or disheartened. You should be fired up to keep pressing it.
Thank you for that. Pashala, did you want to add something to that? Yes, I was going to ask David, I was going to twist that question a little bit, because David and I were talking in the break, and I wanted to ask him around, you know, the point Pastor Emi made that was really poignant around transitioning. There are people that are also sort of in a position where you have the opportunity to maybe consider more than one role. What are some of the things that you need to be thinking about in that space? You know, speaking to a mentor, you know, looking at your career profile. Because I think that's another thing that we generally don't tend to do. We take jobs because, I don't know, it pays or whatever it is. But actually digging a little bit deeper, does this job really serve sort of the next 5 to 10 years of my career journey? And what am I doing sort of in that professional capacity to make sure that, you know, this role that I'm stepping into will really make a difference? I think that's where I want David to sort of bring out, you know, his thoughts around, you know, that career profile. How do you go to another job with the thought of, you know, I don't know, 3-4 jobs ahead, or, you know, what does that actually look like from a professional perspective? Because you're a senior leader in HR as well, and you will have, you know, recruited people who are fairly senior. How do you position yourself? Sort of, I take this role with the mindset of, what does this do to my career in the next 5 to 10 years?
Thank you, Tao. So I think one of the things you need to have in mind is you need to plan what you want to see yourself in the next 10 years, 5 years in your career. And then you look at where you are, your strengths, and also look at what are the skill gap that are within your own remit that you don't have, that you need to acquire before you actually get to where you need to get to, and begin to work on them. And I'll give you an example. What I did was, when I started my role in HR, I had a mentor. It was same age as me then, and was a director. Wow. And I was really, you know, black man, doing big stuff. And I really wanted to know him. And then, you know, we got meeting, we started talking, and he looked at my CVs. He started telling me, you know, guy, if you need to move up, you need to start working on this. You need to start. It was identifying my gap skills. And he said, you need to do some qualifications. You need to get some experience. You need to be willing to put in the work, like Pastor Sola said, do extra, be outstanding. And that got stuck in my head, and I started doing all these things. You know, I did my CIPD straight away, you know, and then I started volunteering in other departments. And that gave me that experience, that exposure. And because I knew where I wanted to be, I said to myself, in the last, Pastor Emi was aware, in the next five years, I want to be a business partner, which I am in now. So when I now, in my previous role, what I then did was my manager gave me opportunities to do more. I took on many projects, and I was watching what she does in terms of how she speaks to stakeholders, how she would, manage the workforce of the whole organization. So I was, in a way, she was not my direct mentor, but I was observing her in what she does on a day-to-day basis, how she manages time, and that really helped me in getting the next, in my current role, in the role I am in now. So you ought to be intentional, you need to be observant, you need to know where you're going, you need to know your strength, you need to know the things, the experience, and the skill gap that you need to acquire to help you get to the next level that you need to get to.
That is so powerful. Thank you for that, David. And I'm going to come to you now, Pastor Shola, and I'm going to repivot that question from an organizational perspective, because I know you spoke about, you know, someone sort of saying, you came in and you said, I'm going to give this 101%, but all of the technical skills and all of those things were not on your CV at the time, but you still got the job. So from an organizational perspective, what can you share with people listening today in terms of that sort of selling yourself, but from an awareness of what the organization needs, from that sort of gap analysis, because that's another thing I personally think people don't do. We come at recruitment from a perspective of, what do I want this organization to give me? What is the salary? What is the gravitas? But, there's more people can do in that sense of, what does this organization actually need? So from your experience in your role, what can you share with people listening today in terms of being able to help organizations fill the gap, And I'll give a good example in terms of the UK. There's a big drive at the moment in making sure that we have more sort of black and minority ethnic people in senior roles. That's a need. Organizations are constantly looking for people of color to fill senior roles. But there's more to it than that. I think the professional qualifications piece David spoke about comes into it. But what more can people do in terms of that gap analysis and helping organizations sort of helping themselves stand out, but also helping organizations see difference as a powerful tool?
So what I'm going to try to do is do 3 steps. So step 1, where Pastor Emi started from, because Pastor Emi gave an example of sponsorship. So one thing that's very important is getting sponsorship. I'm in HR today because a peer looked at me and said, you like people, you help people, why don't you go to HR? That's why I went to HR. There's a job in payroll, apply. I was in legal, said apply. And I did, and I got the job. That's why I'm in HR today, 20 years later, right? So sometimes you just need sponsorship. It doesn't have to be from above. It could be, you also said that, somebody who was your same age, but maybe not a peer, but somebody who's the same age, puts you in the right direction. And what David said earlier also is about skills gaps. What is the gap between where you would like to be and where you are right now? And doing 5-year planning. I think somebody asked me in the break, I'm in this new field, what do I do now? I said, what's your 5-year plan? Because your 5-year plan is going to determine what you need to do now to get to where you want to be. Yeah. And so the question you then asks is, what do you do to stand out? Now, the reality is that I'm not big on bandwagons, right? So I'm not big on, UK needs black people to go to executive level. The reality is that it doesn't happen overnight because we haven't done the work in the background to make it happen. So, first of all, particularly people that have Nigerian descent or African descent, we chase money. That's what we understand, and that's what we chase. And then 20 years later, when you're tired of chasing money and you now want power, you're too low in the rankings because you didn't pay the price for corporate industry, right? Because to gain trust and be a higher executive in an organization, you need to have sown the seeds within the organization to build the trust. Yeah. And so sometimes I think we have to think about ultimately where do you want to be? Like I've always known that I want to be a corporate strategist. I want to be able to be shifting the organization in a direction, even if I'm the only black person there, right? So even after Black Lives Matter, we looked across the UK and there were only 12 partners across all Big Four. 12 partners who were black. That's an indictment, right? But the reality is that everybody else was not prepared for the journey. So it wasn't like they could just say, okay, we want 20 black people to be partners. It's not possible because they're not there. They've not been trained, they've not been encouraged, they've not been coached. So my point is, even if it doesn't exist, create it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, even if it doesn't exist, create it. And then what happens is that you become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So, to your point, what do you need to stand out? One, I say this with all due respect, pocket the race card. Pocket it. You can play it if it needs to be played, but in reality, focus on skill, focus on what you bring to the party, and then play the race card later. Because if you deliver value, no one's going to look at the color of your skin, right? So it's really about delivering value. So a lot of time we play the race card, and don't get me wrong, I've given you stories. I was walked off site once because I was black. So not that I haven't been discriminated against, and I didn't progress in my career because I was black, right? But I could either then be there licking my wounds, taking them to court, maybe won, but that's the end of my career, right? But I took a different route and said, no, I'm going to prove to you that I add value, that I add value, that I add value, that I add value. And so as long as you add value, you keep going up the corporate ladder. And so to answer your question, the specific question for me is focus on adding value. Because if you're adding value, even as a security guard, when you're adding value, they will promote you because you're adding value. So focus on the value you can contribute. Focus on what you can bring rather than what others can give to you. Hope that makes sense. I'm passionate about this one.
Thank you so much, Pastor Sola. That's so profound. I think, and I want to build a bit more on that value piece as well, because how do you put that on a CV? How do you articulate that in an interview? How do you be outstandingly outstanding? If such a word exists, what are the things that, we can share with people today in terms of, and I know Pastor Emi has looked at thousands of CVs. David, you probably have as well, and Pastor Shola probably has. What are some of the things that you think people should just generally avoid? And what are the things that people should, sort of bring out in terms of their professional expertise, their sort of excellence, and how do we sell ourselves in what is a very competitive marketplace? Should I come to you first?
Yeah, that's fine. So I think the number one thing is knowing what you want, identifying what you need to know, and I'll break that down. You see, when a recruiter is looking for a talent, I want to find that in your CV, in your application. I think it's important that we are practical. And if your application is not appealing to me, I won't waste my time. If I look at what you've done in your first or current employment, and you're not giving me what I need, I'm not going to waste my time looking at the rest of your employment history. So you need to put yourself out there. You need to review your CV. You need to ensure that your CV mirrors the job description of the role that you want to see yourself in the next year or in the next 24 months. If that is missing, I would say get an expert to review your CV and start putting yourself out there so that people can see. Example is, if I've been in a role for 12 months, I want to start reviewing my CV. I want to update my CV, include all the experience, all the things I've found myself involved in that last 12 months into that CV, and then put it out there. I'm registered on LinkedIn, I'm registered on Indeed, Total Jobs. Once I put it out there, I'll tell you one thing, 2 weeks, they'll start calling me. And that's you putting yourself out there to showcase what you have, the new talent and the skills and experience you've got within that 12 months to help you step up in your career. And I'll just
that's powerful. Pastor Emi?
I think to add to what David has said is your achievements. What have you done? I remember in one of my jobs, I had this sticky note on my desktop that says that I can see every day, what can I add to this organization today? Because I was thinking, by the time I leave this place, I want to be able to take away with me a whole load of things that I've done, right? That I initiated, that I created, that I established before I left here. So that sticky note was a reminder to me not just to do my day job like Pastor Shola was saying. It's like, what can you do above and beyond the day job? And that's what that question was asking me. What can I add to the organization today? Because a lot of times people get to a place where they just play two in their jobs and in what they are doing because they're doing a good job of it, right? But then that's it. They go every day and they do a great job, but they're not adding anything more. There's no reason why the organization say, look, let's take this person out of this job and put them in a more senior position, or why people will headhunt you in the first place. So I always said to myself, what can I add here? Because what I add, I can put on my CV as an achievement, right? And what you add can be little, but what you add can also be institutional. It can be cross-organizational. So think about the strategic changes you can make for the institution. Think about the operational changes you can make for the institution. And think about things that are less strategic or less operational, that even make the team excited about having you and want to keep you on board or to keep promoting you, you know. I had a conversation with the chief operating officer recently, and it was like, are you happy? I was like, I'm happy at the moment. Say, okay, is there anything we can do to keep you happy? I was like, what you can give me, you don't have, right? What you can give me to make me happier, you don't have at the moment. But if somebody were to offer it to me, it might be difficult for me to turn down. It's like, okay, if they do offer it to you, make sure you talk to me first before you accept the offer, right? And I think they can only have that kind of conversation with you because you are doing beyond the day job, right? You are adding more. So if you're going to present your CV to someone, even if you're applying for a job that is not directly in your line, your achievement tells the person that even if this is not the individual's line, this person is an achiever, right? If we bring them on board, they will make something happen for us. They will even look beyond what it is you don't have because they can see that you're somebody that adds value. And that's something that Pastor Sola was talking about a lot, adding value.
Yeah, definitely, rather close to that. And I also want to point something out, because I think we've said it a few times today, but I want to make sure that people don't hear what we're not saying. We're not saying you have to work long hours. We're just saying you have to add value. Because adding value doesn't mean working long hours, right? They tell you to do a presentation, and you just do the presentation. You can add more. You can add footnotes. You can add commentary. You can add images. So that's what we mean by adding value. It's not necessarily working longer hours, though sometimes that might be required, but it's really about adding value, going over and beyond. I just wanted to clarify that point. Now, I'm going to come a completely different way from these guys on this side. And just because I like to aggravate the situation. 10 years ago, we predicted that the CV is dead, and we're almost there. The CV is dead. So even if you have a CV and I'm hiring you, if you're not on LinkedIn, I'm not hiring you. End of story. Facts. I'm not going to hire you. Because what you write to your CV cannot be collaborated, it's not in a public space. So if you're on LinkedIn, at least it's public. So that's my principle.
Indeed.
A lot of the tools today don't require you to present a CV. They ask you for your Facebook or your LinkedIn, right? And actually, technology that we're working on in the future means the CV will die, right? Now, why is it dying? Is because actually, even if you give me your CV, it's going to take an algorithm 2 seconds to do the matching on you. 2 seconds. Your CV spends 2 seconds in the hands of an algorithm to check whether your experiences and the job description match. And if it doesn't match, it's out. An algorithm can go through over 10,000 CVs in less than 5 minutes and do the matching. So, it shows that you need something else to stand out. One, like you said, make sure that you kind of do as much as you can to tailor your CV or your LinkedIn profile to the jobs you're applying for, because that's what the algorithm is looking out for. It's looking for programmer. And if you don't use the word programmer, you are out. Even if you use the word developer, but the algorithm is looking for developer. Algorithm is like, it doesn't hear come, it doesn't hear, it just hears to what, look for programmer. It doesn't say programmer, no, you're out. So understand that, that's at the back of your mind, and that's true of any big organization today. They're using algorithms, and even if they're not, recruiters are not spending more than 5 seconds looking at your CV. It's up, down, does it look, boom, yes or no, right? And particularly when there's lots of applications. So I'm just saying that to say, yes, the CV is important, but actually for me, more important is your LinkedIn profile. Also, study the organization. There's an organization in America that would not accept your CV if you send it from a Hotmail address. If you apply with a Hotmail address, you are automatically rejected. You can even Google it. There's an article in the Times. They don't accept Hotmail because they say you're too stuck in the old way. So they either only take Gmail, but they're going to stop taking Yahoo also. So simple things like that. You're thinking, why? Because they're saying that you're not moving with the time. You're still stuck with Hotmail, right? I'm just saying these are true examples, right? So it's really about understand the climate in which you're applying for, making yourself stand out. You talked about achievements. You talked about experience. But then also do your due diligence. Because for me, your CV or your LinkedIn is the shop window that invites you into a conversation. Some people, their CVs, I mean, we know it now. I mean, more than 2 pages, in my view, is too much. 3 maximum. But even I review CVs that are 5 pages long. I don't look beyond the first page. I honestly don't. Now, I don't do as much recruiting as I used to do, but I honestly don't look beyond the first page. When the first page, I know whether you are going for the next interview or not. You understand? So think about that also. Think about the fact that you're going, even the cover letter is dying, right? Because people, I don't have time to read your CV. How much time will I even need to read your cover letter? So the world is evolving and changing. The more we have better technology, the more it's going to be down to. So all you want to do is to pass the algorithm to get the interview and then prove yourself. All right, so like I said, I was going to come with
No, that's absolutely fine. And that sort of brings us to, I'll ask one more question and then we'll sort of wrap up the session. So from that technology perspective then, what more can people do? I've heard people say things like, exactly what you said there, Pastor Shola, around using super words to boost your LinkedIn profile, for example. What are some of the tips that you can share with everybody in the audience and people sort of listening online as well in terms of standing out? So on LinkedIn, on Indeed, and other recruitment and platforms and things exist as well.
Total Jobs.
Yes, because there are a lot of algorithms as well that go through YouTube and things and pick up keywords. So just to put that disclaimer in there. What more can people do? I will say a quick one for me actually, because I do in my current role tend to do quite a lot of recruitment as well. And what I find is that when people are invited to interview, they'll go on my LinkedIn and sort of have a look, and some of them will even go as far as adding me, which most times I think is a bit too much because I don't know you. So I'm quite protective of my LinkedIn profile. So is that something, what are your thoughts from a recruitment perspective in terms of how people manage the online presence, how people manage how they're seen on other platforms as well? Because I know recruiters go on to other platforms outside of the professional ones as well, just to see what your comments are, what do you engage in outside of work. So what are your thoughts on what can people do to make sure that they stand themselves in good stead when they get to that interview? I've heard people being asked questions like, you posted this XYZ, can you give us a rationale behind your comments? And it just becomes a very awkward interview or conversation.
So, I'm just going to build on what you said, and I'll leave it to the more experts in the room. First of all, our lives are online, right? So, everything you say is being observed. Whether you want them to be observed or not, is being observed. So, live as if you live in a glass house online. That's number one. Number two, do what you just said. Do go and look. And if somebody's going to interview you, go on LinkedIn. Go and check them on LinkedIn. If somebody's on an interview panel, go and check them on LinkedIn. Because people then think, okay, you're curious enough to go and find me on LinkedIn. You're curious enough to be looking around the organization. And then the most important thing, this is what a lot of people fail in my interviews, when I ask you, do you know what my company does? And you give me some mumbo rambo, you're out. Because that means you're just looking for a job. You're not looking to work for my company. Because if you are looking to work for my company, I will ask you a question, I will have to tell you to shut up. It's enough. I know you know my company. Right? So that's my view. I think you just really, if you're going to apply for a company, really get to understand the company, because people appreciate the fact that you're not just applying for a job, you're applying for a job in this company that does these things, and therefore I know you've done your due diligence to make sure this is the company that you want to work for. And I'll say this and I'll hand over. There was one interview that I ended in 1 minute. 1 minute. And HR and the other interviewer agreed with me. This guy just told lies on his CV and didn't even know what we did as a company. And in 1 minute, I was just like, you know what, dudes, let's stop. It was a face-to-face. I was like, we're done. Let's not waste your time. Let's not waste our time. You say you have experience of this, and I ask you what is it. You said, oh, you read it on a book. Okay, what about that? Oh, I watched a YouTube clip. Okay, guy, this is a technical interview, and you read it on a book, and you watch it on a video, and you don't even know what we do. 1 minute, he was out. In fact, they were saying that I was patient. I was like, there's no point. This is a waste of everybody's time. Just stop. Let's just thank you. Thank you for coming. Wish you the best for your future. 1 minute.
I have experienced a really bad interview, sort of on the interviewer side, and I wasn't that brave. We sort of sat through it, and it was the most painful 45 minutes of my career. Pastor Amy, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Pastor Shola is right. I've done so many interviews this year, and my first question is usually, why are you interested in this role? And in that question, we expect the person not just to talk about their interest from a technical point of view or from a professional point of view in that role, but also to tell us about why they're interested in our institution, right? It's like there are lots of other institutions, why this one? And a lot of people just don't get that. A lot of people don't get that. I mean, the other thing about your online profile is I'll say, look, we've already talked about the fact that people want to be somewhere in 5 to 10 years. I would say review what that 5 to 10 years looks like. What is it that you need to have to be able to put on your profile, right? So you've done research. You know what that role looks like. You know the people who are in the role you want to be in 5 to 10 years look like. Look at what their profile looks like and ask yourself, how can you build your profile to be like that profile in 5 to 10 years time, and begin to ensure that you are tweaking your online profile every year to ensure that you are growing to match that profile, because people will start looking at your profile and searching for you. I don't know if it's that you've blown in your career, is that when you are not applying for jobs, people are coming to look for you because headhunters are coming after you because your profile is matching the profile of the people that they're looking for. And I think you can do that work online, right? In the bit about your personal online profile, well, you just need to think very carefully about what it is that you want to be when you grow older, and ask yourself if your profile is going to help you achieve that. I saw this case law. This is when people take someone to an employment tribunal to make a decision about something they've done, and it was an actress who was playing a theater role, and she was going to act the part of somebody who was from the LGBTQ plus community, and she was going to do that role, and then some guys online had just gone through her Facebook profile, and they found something she had posted like 3 to 5 years ago. 3 to 5 years ago. And then they just started this campaign on social media to kick her out of the role, right? And then the people she was going to be acting with now felt uncomfortable about things she had said online about people in this community, and they were saying that the employer had to let her go. Now, the employer they had conversations with her about her position. What's your rationale? Why did you write this? This was so many years ago. What's your position today, etc.? And she kept declaring what her position was. And they felt that because her being in the role had an impact with everybody else she was working with, and had an impact on the business, and even the agency that got her to act in this role also felt uncomfortable about her position, they had to let her go, right? And then she took them to employment tribunal and lost, because the rationale behind why they had to let her go was more of a business thing than whether or not about the religious stance she was taking, you know? And I was thinking to myself that I can understand where she is coming from by putting her position or her beliefs on the social media platform, right? And whether or not Jesus wants you to do that is a question you might need to ask yourself and answer for yourself, and get direction from the Holy Spirit on. I have my views about whether or not Jesus wants you to publish such things, but you can ask me after this session, you know. But essentially, her views, however long ago she had them and published them, impacted her career today. So not only did that employer let her go, but her agency also let her go because they felt that her position, her public position, was not consistent with them as a business. So you need to think carefully about what it is you believe that Jesus is asking you to publish online, where your personal profile is concerned. And obviously, I'm sure you would have seen it many times now, that people say things about their employer online and they lose their jobs. They sometimes take their employer to an employment tribunal, and the tribunal says, guy, what were you thinking? Obviously, you're not going to get your job back and your employer's position is right, because you can't go there and just say anything. You can't just be angry and do a WhatsApp status about your employer and somebody screen grabs it and then you see the next day that you're called into a room and they say, look, this is what you had on your WhatsApp status, right? Because some of us have our colleagues on our phones on WhatsApp and they see, they screen grab it. And like somebody said to me yesterday or today, once it's online, it's like you can't get it back. You can't stop it. It's gone. You don't know how far it's gone. So even if you delete it, guy, yeah, I have so many stories about that, but let's not go into that. Be careful what you do online, because it can have a detrimental or positive impact on your career.
You heard it here first. Finally, David.
Yeah, thanks, Pastor Emma. So I'm just gonna go on the interviewing aspect. So we need to sharpen our interviewing skills, and these are some of the errors I have found through my career. People tend to come in for an interview without properly doing their due diligence, understanding the role, and having some interviewing techniques. So there's something we call the START techniques. It's called, which means situation, task, and the result. And the result. So if you're going into an interview, like Pastor Amy and then Pastor Sola said, you need to do research on the organization. And if they're asking you a question about what are you bringing, that is the time for you to sell yourself. It's the time that the panel will decide, okay, you're capturing them when they ask you that question. So you understanding the organization, thinking ahead of time of what questions they would ask you, would put you in a very good, comfortable position when you are entering an interviewing session. So it is key that you understand that. It is key that you use that to structure your answers, so that apart from all the experience you've gathered and the skills you've got, answering and using the right techniques at interviewing stage pay well for you and gives you the right job. So I'll just back it there.
No, that's powerful. Just on that point, the STAR technique is situation. What was the situation? The task. What were you asked to do? The action. What did you do? And the result. You know, it's so powerful that the amount of times I've sat in an interview and people just waffle on and on and on, and you're thinking, what exactly are you trying to tell me in this example or in this scenario? The other thing that I find actually is people are very complacent, especially when you're doing an internal interview. They just walk in thinking, oh, I know that recruitment manager, it's going to be a walk in the park. No, you're expected to do your homework. You're in that seat. That interviewer has probably sifted through hundreds and hundreds of CVs to get to you. Make that opportunity count for you and for the person that's sitting on the other side of the fence as well, because that interviewer is an individual. I think that's what I found in my experience as well. People come into interviews thinking or forgetting that there's a person on that other side of the fence as well, and they're there to do a job. You know, they have a script. They have things that they need to answer to at the end of that interview. And if you've not been able to demonstrate that, they can get asked the question, how on earth did you shortlist this person? And they've come and sat in front of you and they haven't done what, you know, they said they were going to do. All right, I'm conscious of time. We're going to park it there. I want to thank everybody in the room. I want to thank everybody online. I've seen your engagement. I've seen all the emojis. Please, please, please help me show Pastor Emmy, Pastor Shola, Minister David some love, some appreciation. They've given up the bulk of their Saturday afternoon to come and share their professional experience, their time, nuggets with you. Please let us show them some love. Let us say a KingsWord thank you. And as I said earlier, if you're new, please let us know online that you're new, and we will show you some love. Thank you so, so much from me. You know, when Pastor gave the mandate for this program, you know, I didn't think it would be so beautiful, but the day has been so special. I've written down tons. And if you're hosting an event and you're writing stuff down, that says a lot about, you know, our guest speaker today. So please help me give a huge round of applause again to Pastor Sola Osinoiki. And to yourselves as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we have a number of other events as well. Tomorrow is our Mother's Day service. It's going to be absolutely out of this world. If you haven't seen the video with Eben on YouTube. I mean, where have you been? That service was just the most beautiful service ever. My children are still talking about it. So if you haven't seen that, it's on our YouTube channel. Please go and watch it. Please like it. Please share it as well. And show us some love online. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And yeah, au revoir, as Pastor will always say. Au revoir. God bless you. I don't know the other one. There's a Spanish word. Please help me.
I know it's... I feel the same.
That's it.
Au revoir, ciao, adios, amigos.
Yeah,
amigos.
adios. That's it. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless you.